Hello, hello, hello. Hello, testing, testing, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Hello, hello. Testing, testing. Alright. Alright, everybody, how we doing? How we doing? Oh my god, I'm really late. Alright, let me add the late points. I gotta add a bunch of late points here. Fuck. I should have done what I was doing before, which is basically, um, which is basically, just moving the stream time, but, I'm too kind-hearted to do that. I've got too much integrity, you know? You know what? Here, I kind of want to do this. Let me do this. One second, one second. No, you know what? I'll do this after. Hold on, hold on. Hold on. Let me get my late penalties over here. Okay, so it's 23 late points by my count, which means that we are now back in the penalty zone. So I think it's at 169. All right, here we go. First of all, two people want to cash in. Do we have people who want to cash in here? Are we cashing in? Let's do the vote. Let's do the vote. Let's do the vote. Let me catch up on supers in the meantime. Do you want to cash in on late penalties? You can see the options over here. We've got a couple supers, a few supers. Ignorant Weed, thanks for the 5. Big shout out to Grand Line Review. As much as I love reading this arc, I have to admit that without his videos, I wouldn't understand 5% of it. Shit. Last time that Togashi started putting out chapters again, I went and watched Grand Line Review's recap video. It's a great recap video. It's like 40-something minutes from what I recall. Did he put out a new one? Because that would help remind me of what happened in the last batch as well. Let me see. Would it be on Grand Line? It would be under New World Review, right? New World Review, Hunter recap. Does he have a new version of the recap, I guess I'm asking? Because we've got the 1-year recap. Oh, complete society. Okay, we got it. No, why is it 8 hours long? I can't watch an 8 hour. 8 hours is too long. I feel like I could just read it at that point. His other recap was much shorter. It was 2 hours. What happened here? Why is this new one 8 hours long? Fuck. I can't. Maybe I could just watch the previous recap and then read the next batch of chapters. I don't know, but I haven't seen the new recap, the 2026 version. The previous one that he did is very comprehensive. I would like to go back and read that or watch that again, and then I guess read from where that leaves off. But honestly, I think we're just gonna get into it. It's just a video compilation, if I recall. Okay, so it's not really a recap. Tio Treviso, for context, he did a previous recap that I thought was really good. That I'm probably going to go back and watch again. Okay, no, we're not cashing out at late points. Alright, I don't know what you guys are holding out for. Tio Treviso, thanks for bringing a Pirate King to remember for 15 months, man. Hunter x Hunter is the only manga where there's no overthinking plot stuff. The current arc is literally a political assassination tournament adventure 99% without the MC, and yet stakes higher than the Ant arc. What do you mean, no overthinking plot stuff? What does that mean? I mean, I love Hunter x Hunter, especially right now. This is turning out to be my favorite arc, maybe. But yeah. No overthinking plot stuff. Brandino1695, thanks for the 2. 413 is a top 5 chapter of the arc, so fucking good. So I know the big spoiler that comes out. So I have to catch up on all the chapters, basically. So that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be reacting this stream. So I'll be catching up on all the chapters. I considered catching up beforehand and then just having a discussion stream about it, but didn't get time. So this is what we got. I know the spoiler about Gon and Killua being back in the story, or at least being showcased again. Let's get streamlights up to... Actually, yeah, let's say 30. 30. I know this will be a tighter stream because it's Hunter x Hunter. Tapio Treviso, thanks for 2. Cough up 23 points, boy. We still need Watto analysis. Hey, you guys vote for whatever late penalty you want. Snap, good to see you. Thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 46 months. Hi, Mojiboy. Holy shit. Holy Hunter x Hunter. Time for Kingdom soon. Can you put on a 15-minute time? Because I'll make pizza and don't want to burn my house. Thanks, Morji. I don't know if I'm going to do that. Stormy4907 says we could make him do a Fire Punch video. I would actually have so much fun doing a Fire Punch video. I don't know if I put that on Manga Morge or my main channel. I have like all the notes I need for a Fire Punch video. Morio Anime says, Morge, who's your favorite prince? I love Serdenik. I mean, I think Serdenik is everyone's favorite prince, right? Just one of the coolest Hunter x Hunter characters, quite some time. I think it's really cool when, the villain is written as being a total noob that, becomes a genius and master really, really fast. Because, normally you see that for the hero, right? The hero's the underdog, they're a scrub, etc., but their growth rate is just so fast. I think it's really cool to write Serdenik like that, He's not the first villain to have a really fast growth rate, but I just think it's cool that he starts at, like, level 0, like, literally civilian status, And then there's no special sort of, like, boost that he's given or anything like that. He literally just is very talented innately at Nen, and so his growth rate is faster than everybody else. I like that quite a bit. Hulkenberg fan, Ben is growing on me. I got some theories. I personally think that I'll leave the theories for now. Chapter Treviso says Serdenik is somehow a guy I want to win just to see his ceiling. I have a feeling that the story is going to come down to... he's going to go down in this boat arc. I think him and Kurapika are on the big collision course. I think Serdenik is basically a villain that's kind of built to be a Kurapika villain at the end of the day, and it'll probably take various efforts to take him down or whatever, Like, I don't think Kurapika is going to solo him, but... that's just never the way Hunter x Hunter has really worked. You can't just predict, like, fights like that, But it feels like this is the Kurapika arc. This is... How do I put... Okay, so let me explain this, all right? So if you look at Gon and Killua, if you look at all the main characters, Gon, Killua, Kurapika, I don't think Leorio falls under main character status, right? If you look at it like this, Gon and Killua's overarching storylines, right, that were playing throughout all of, I guess you could say, part 1, their overarching storylines, like their personal character conflicts, etc., those all came to a head and kind of resolved over the course of the Chimerant arc and then the chairman election arc, basically. Like, their storylines, that everything that had been built up for them resolved. That's not to say that there's not more for them in the story, because there obviously is, but their initial character trajectories, those through lines have come to a close, right? Kurapika was the other main character, right? And his storyline seems like it's set for its equivalent resolution to Gon and Killua's here in the boat arc, right? You've got all the pieces you need. You got the Scarlet Eyes. You've got, drive for revenge, but his responsibility to protect. You've got all of the spiders here. Everything's there for Kurapika. He's the main character, right? So my feeling is that this is the arc that kind of resolves his storyline, whether it ends in Kurapika's death, whatever it is, we don't know. And then I think from then on, once we hit the Dark Continent, now we're kind of starting clean slate-ish, but we're now opening the door to lots of other stuff, like, the Pariston, Beyond, Jing stuff, etc. I'm sure Gon and Killua will still be involved. They might retake their status as the main characters if they're able to fast travel there somehow, but they're not, their stories aren't done yet, but essentially the chapters, like the main chapters that Togashi started for all 3 of the main characters, are being closed right now. Does that make sense? Anyway. Yeah, I don't know how far we are through the boat arc. Let me read again. I mean, just through day count, we're not even at halfway, right? Leorio's a main character. He's like technically a main character, you know? Leorio is he's the Kuwabara of Hunter x Hunter. It's interesting that Togashi basically he has a character set that he likes, and he essentially copied that uh from what do you call Yu Yu Hakusho um to he copied basically what he was thinking from Yu Yu Hakusho over to Hunter x Hunter. He likes that main character dynamic, but he just uses them differently. So the characters are generally analogs, right? Hiei and Killua are similar character types. Kurapika is the new version of Kurama. Leorio is the new version of Kuwabara, right? They all have similar personalities, similar vibes, and they bring similar things to the story. Gon and Yusuke are the most different between his two main characters, but they fulfill the similar role in kind of like the way that they operate, which is more, you know, uh, uh, spontaneous drive, willpower protagonists, you know, without too much of a brain, etc. Anyway, all right, let's get into it. Let's get into it. I think I should be fine doing the viz here. I don't think I'll get in trouble. Let me see. Read Hunter. It's been so long I've forgotten. Is Hunter Hunter are the viz translations good for Hunter Hunter, or should I do somewhere else? So I'm starting at chapter 410, right? Oh no, 411. Starting at 411. This is gonna be crazy because I'm really so far. I'm actually. What is it? 411? What am I reacting to here? It's 411, right? Viz is really good. Okay, let's do Viz. Four 11. All right, let's get into it. All right, I'll do Viz. I'll do Viz. Uh, or actually, hold on. I don't like Viz's layout though. Before we get into it, I personally, I don't know if we're gonna get into the Hulkenberg stuff right here, but what I was thinking for some time is that uh, who's body swapped right now? Hulkenberg is body swapped at the moment, right? I think he'll die in Benjamin's subordinate's body, and then Benjamin will get his ability. Okay. Let me move some shit around here. Alright, hold on. Let me move some shit around. So, what I need at the moment, well, here, let me do it like this. Let me add a new display. The fuck? Alright, hold on. Is this good? Okay, okay. This should be good. Ah, we're almost there. We're almost to what I want to do. We're almost to what I want to do. Okay. There we go. Alright. Alright. Okay, so now you guys should be able to see this, and now I've moved chat over to the other side. Okay. All right, all right. Okay. Hold on. All right, you guys are going to have a lot of patience with me in terms of everything here. Okay, I'm rusty on my Hunter x Hunter. You know, on Manga Morge, I have a whole mid-arc analysis of the themes of the storyline. I should watch that shit and get a review. All right. Once the Ninth Prince's private army is disbanded and the... Okay, hold on. Let's read from the beginning. All right, let's go. The Ninth Prince's funeral procession is scheduled to depart the ministry. I remember it was so wild when we found out that Hulkenberg was just, like, legit, his body, like, he's announced dead. You know, I thought that was just crazy. I'm like, how does he even win the succession war at this point, you know? Ninth Prince's private army is disbanded, and the procedures for their reassignment tier 2 below are complete. I'll return here. So, Hulkenberg's inside this dude's body, right? Good work, well done. Yeah. Okay, here we go. Could it be that I'm making fun? Fuchan use up extra energy. This was so... Yeah, okay. I'm remembering everything. His death was suicide or assassination by the first prince. The funeral will likely be held grandly and solemnly so as not to provoke public... Okay. Who's this dude? I don't remember who this dude is. Who's this dude? Oh, wait, is this one of the fucking, the Zodiacs? Oh, no, never mind. That was fucking stupid. To me, he looked like the monkey Zodiac for a second. What? Captain of the Guard? I don't even know who this dude is. Who's this dude? Captain of the Guard? I just don't even remember the character. The guard who is Beyond's child. A guard of Camilla. Okay. I need a reminder on all of these fucking dudes. Everyone's got so many bodyguards. I remember I really loved this setup. I should have watched the review video or reread the arc first. Alright, second training session. An increase of one person per prince? Damn. More characters. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's so interesting that Kurapika's whole strategy is like, well, if everybody has... it's basically like, if everybody has guns, then no one's gonna want to shoot each other, right? And that's like... I don't know if things work like that. I remember this dude because he looks funny. Ace McCumbag says Morge did not do his homework for the stream. Yeah, it's crazy. I feel like Hunter x Hunter's the. I know I should have, but at the same time, it's like a lot of homework to do for this, you know? So I feel like the easier way to do it would be to read, and then you guys fill me in as we go along a little bit. Stormy4907 says, I guess that's how nukes work, kind of. The thing is that there's a difference between nukes and guns. Because guns are tricky, because guns are not mutually assured destruction, right? And that's more like what Nen is, right? There's a reason that we still go to war and shit like that and use guns and weaponry, but nobody uses nukes, right? Guns are the tricky place where it's like, that's not actually mutually assured destruction. If two sides use guns, one side is ultimately going to win. So that's more like what Nen is here. Kurapika thinks it's like mutually assured destruction, but it's really not. Ultimately, the better Nen users will come out on top. I fucked up. I should have reread this whole arc. Because I like this sort of stuff where we're getting the thoughts of the more minor characters fleshed out. It'll help me remember them more in the future. But at the moment, I don't even. If I were to rattle off the top of my head, my memories of each of the princes are: first is Benjamin, second's Camilla, third is the bald dude who spits out the coins, right? Dark skinned. Fourth is Serednik. Fifth, I don't remember. Who is the fifth prince? Usually the princes generally get less imposing the further down you kind of go, you know? Or their abilities kind of get worse. Halkenberg, the ninth prince, is the exception. Seventh prince is that dude that smokes a lot. Think like Lazarus or something like that. One of the eighth or ninth princesses, one's the big fat dude. One's the girl who writes the book. Then I think 10th and 11th are the twins or the two girls. Tubepa, he's the fifth prince, right? Then who's the sixth? Who's the sixth prince? Who's the sixth prince? Yeah, generally the top five princes are the really dangerous seeming ones. Top five princes are the really dangerous seeming ones, and then Halkenberg's kind of the exception among the lower princes, right? Who's the sixth prince? Tyson. Tyson is six? Okay, that makes... Tyson seems younger because she's short. 6, 7. Okay, then 8 is that big dude who died, right? Then who the fuck was 9? Oh, I remember 9. I remember one's like a pretty nondescript girl. That might have been 9 or 10. Then there's the two twins, then there's the little kid with the dragon, and then there's obviously the youngest prince. Beyond? Halkenberg is 9. Oh my god, I fucking forgot. I keep mentioning Halkenberg is 9, and then I'm trying to remember who the ninth is. That's funny. Um, Beyond is 50 plus, and he might maybe over 100. Yeah, Beyond's risk, like, I'm so curious about the Dark Continent because I really, really wonder. It's just such a fascinating storytelling possibility, right? Because I really wonder if once we get to the Dark Continent, whether Beyond will get to really play the role of main villain, or if they're gonna have to deal with Dark Continent shit as the main problem. I don't know. There's also option effect. Oh, I might need to change the viz just because I don't like the printing here. I'll change after this one. That way I don't have to log in either. Will act as a turn and... Okay, I'm gonna keep going because I think if I spend too much time delving into this, I'm just gonna need to reread the whole thing. I'm gonna need to reread the whole thing for greater context. That's my bad, everybody. But let's get to the main beats. Dark Continent is what I thought the New World was gonna be in One Piece. I mean, I think it's different because One Piece and like One Piece and Hunter x Hunter. Hunter x Hunter is a bit more abstract in general, so the New World in One Piece was always going to be more tangible threat. Like, it was just going to continue what we've already been doing, which is fighting stronger opponents, bigger organizations, taking them down, etc. And the New World is just the scaled up version of that, right? Um, I think Oda took some time before hammering in. So the tricky thing with the New World, how to explain this? In One Piece, the idea of the New World. So the New World 100% delivered on the hype and threat that it was supposed to represent, but the catch is that it did it before the Straw Hats got to the New World. Does that make sense? So, when people think about like, oh, the Straw Hats entering the New World, Oda always wanted the Straw Hats to come into the New World like after having been kind of broken and come in like all trained up, strong, ready to kick ass, right? So, to introduce the level of threat of the New World, he basically had Luffy and the crew experience that right before they actually entered it. So the entire Marineford saga, starting from Sabaody until the time skip, is basically the new. It's not them. It's right before they step into the New World. The New World essentially comes to them a little bit earlier. It's the same experience that they would have gotten if they'd gone into the New World half cocked, right? They would have gotten fucked up, right? The entire Marineford saga is basically from start to finish, them just having to go up against New World threats and being completely crushed, right? Sabaody's the first experience, then Impel Down for Luffy, and finally Marineford is a preview of what the New World is like. So, and then Rayleigh basically explains to him, like, that's what the New World is like. Are you sure you want to jump right back into that or train, right? So, I definitely think that the New World 100% delivered in terms of the concept of what it is. It's just Oda, it's the geography of where they experience it is a little bit different, right? They get to the doorstep of the New World, they get a taste of what it's like, they get destroyed, then they train, and then they come into it actually prepared, and then they fuck it up, right? So you can only have two really ways to do it, which is Oda could have had them actually go into the New World, get destroyed, and then they have a 2-year time skip trading, and then they're more prepared for the New World. Or Oda went the route of like, have them get fucked up at the doorstep of the New World, like essentially get to preview what it would be like, then make them train, then go in prepared, so then we get the fun of seeing the Straw Hats bust into the New World and fuck shit up. Does that make sense? Yeah. I don't know. I think the way that he did it is fair with what he wanted to achieve, because like it's not as good. Because then, if you have the Straw Hats train for 2 years, step into the New World, and get fucked up again right away anyway, then it's kind of like, well, then what the fuck was the point of all this? All right, continuing on. Yeah, the thing with Hunter x Hunter is like I don't need all of like my favorite characters to conquer the Dark Continent and become the strongest or anything like that. It I like the pitch of the Dark Continent just being stuff that's basically beyond the level of humanity. So I'm interested in sort of the forces and entities and mysteries that we encounter there. I think it'll be really cool. The problem is that it's just so huge, right? So how do you adequately have the heroes experience a world that is like so many times bigger than the world that we've already been in? You know, how do we have our main characters experience that in a way that feels fulfilling? Wouldn't it need to be several times the length of the story that we've had already? Hmm. I am Gipper. I forget this guy's name. I guess his name's Gipper. I think what okay, here's one issue I have with Tagashi is I don't think the character designs are distinct enough. I think I love what he's doing with I love what he's doing with the arc. I love the arc. I love what he's doing with the arc. I think personally that if you have an arc which has this many characters and a lot of them are dressed in similar clothing because they're bodyguards, etc., I personally think that there needs to be more differentiation in character designs. I think that's one area where I'm always going to give Oda major props, which is that Oda just loves coming up with character designs for no fucking reason. I think it's arguably one of his weaknesses that he loves making new character designs so much that I think he sometimes makes more characters than needed just because he wants designs. Again, I go to the Wano five mafia family heads as an example. I'm just like, why did we need these guys? I think Oda just had some design ideas and wanted to run with them. Let's get the stream likes up to 50 real quick. Let's get the stream likes up to 50. Taptio Treviso, thanks for the two. Oh, first of all, Darwin's invitation. And Joseph eBay, thanks for the jewels. I appreciate it. Taptio Treviso, thanks for the two. The glimpses of Dark Continent seem more horror. Um, seem more horror. I don't know if you're saying more horror greater than Berserk or horror arrow Berserk. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I do feel like it's more horror esque. All right, continuing on. Scott Limit says I've not touched Berserk since the author died. I tried one or two. I tried two chapters after Mira passed, and then I didn't read again until that recent chapter that everyone really hyped up. Oh, greater than Berserk, horror greater than Berserk. Yeah, the one thing Berserk's always gonna. I don't know. I think conceptually, sure, maybe it'll be greater, more horror than Berserk conceptually. But Berserk is just in terms of visuals and the actual atmosphere and everything. I can't imagine Hunter x Hunter coming remotely close. Maybe I'm being a little unfair because I mean the stuff Tagashi's pulled out for, like Seren, or no, not even Serenix. All of the princes, many of the princes, Nen Beasts has been phenomenal. You know, so I shouldn't say that. Shouldn't say that. But I mean, Berserk's a very high bar to clear in terms of just that feel, like visual feel and atmosphere and everything like that. I personally, I like Hunter x Hunter overall better than Berserk as a personal preference, but I'm never gonna disrespect Berserk, you know. And there's certain areas where I'm just like, nah, Berserk's just unrivaled. I I'm so fucked. I'm so fucked. I don't remember this guy's dynamics and relationships with the other guards. I'm gonna have to power through this. I'm gonna have to power through this and go back. I'm gonna have to power through and go back. Let's get to the highlights. Let's get to the highlights. At least to make the stream more interesting for you all. Because otherwise I'm not gonna be able to provide good commentary on the nuances of the dynamics between all of the guards and princes. I wonder how powerful this original king was. Or is, sorry. I like this speech right here from Kurapika. We'll stick to juicy stuff like this. I love the other stuff, but I need to be in the headspace where I have a full understanding of everything that's going on for me to be able to dig in and appreciate it. Dark Dragon X7, thanks for being a Pirate King tier member for 1 month. Unfortunately, what makes this arc work so well, the release schedule also makes it hard to read in real time because it's like 2 to 3 years between chapters. Yeah, so for example, if One Piece took a 2-year break right now, and then we came back in 2 years, most everything would be easy to pick up because it's like, okay, Zoro and Sanji are fighting these guys, Luffy's up against killing him, or not killing him, Imu, right? It's pretty clear cut, you know? Even the broader stakes things are easy to understand. It's like Dragon and the Revolutionaries are fighting the world government, right? Shanks doesn't like Blackbeard, right? Stuff like that. This is very different in that this is more novel-esque, right? Dylon, welcome to the Yonko. Thanks a lot for joining. I appreciate it. Watch out for the podcast that comes out tomorrow that is accompanies tomorrow's video. Yeah, so the tricky thing with this is simply if it's written like a dense novel, and it's hard to take a break generally from reading a dense novel, come back in 2 years later, pick up where you left off with your bookmark, and remember all of the characters and motivations. Especially because this goes so deep, right? So it'd be one thing if our focus was on the 14 princes, right? It'd be one thing if our focus was on all of the princes, but it's another thing entirely when it's the princes are essentially each representing their own organization to a degree with subordinates upon subordinates upon subordinates, right? So, and then that's just literally, it's literally just the tip of the iceberg in the sense that that's before we even get to the lower levels of the ship where you got factions upon factions upon factions, and then you're throwing in the rogue players like the spiders, etc. Prayer to God. Hmm. 12 12 days of Bass, what remains a month and a half. That is insane. So they're 25% of the way through this arc. God damn, 25% of the way through this arc. Oh shit. I like that Togashi always answers questions, you know? Natural questions that the reader might have are always answered. He's very, I feel like he's an author that's very, very concerned. Not very concerned, no, not concerned, but very aware of trying to shore up any logic holes, you know? Mm. Oh, what? Oh, he's playing him. All right, this is inaccurate. I'm gonna switch to Viz now. Hold on. So my problem with Viz is that they've changed things so you have to, if your subscription runs out, you have to download an app and subscribe through there. It doesn't let you pay anymore through the site. So I think my own Viz subscription has run out. I always forget that. I don't like downloading apps. I'll get to it at some point. 14th Prince Wobble isn't participating in the succession battle. He didn't give an explanation for why Wobble doesn't meet the requirements. I feel like that's kind of odd. Or is that coming? Maybe that's coming. I fucking forgot this. I completely forgot this, that Beyond has a child. I forgot about this shit. I forgot. They're getting into accents and or like differences in accents and dialects between, I suppose, languages or regions. That's funny. Yeah, next time just watch Grandland Reviews Hunter x Hunter video before you read. I will do that. I will do that. I have half a mind to just reread the arc because that usually gives me the best, um, overall understanding. But the video will definitely fast forward things for sure. That's what I did last time. Whoa, the prince sleeping. There's the prince I held at the interview. There's no way. What? What? What is going on? What? I don't remember this. Was this all established beforehand? I know that we had the beyond part established, but I thought it would have been a trick. Hold on. I didn't realize that she was aware of it. Interesting. Okay. In the seed urn ritual, my daughter was. I don't remember this shit. I remember the Beyond shenanigans being mentioned of him having a child in the Succession War. Hold on. It was my sister's son who participated in the ceremony. Okay. Okay, cool, cool. All right. I'm sure there's more issues with that, but remains to be seen. Okay. Interesting, interesting. Wait. Hold on. Or is this. Hold on. I feel like I'm missing something. Hmm. Okay, because the real Wobble could still be hiding aboard the ship and really does have eligibility. No matter what Benjamin Camp says. I see. Oh, whoops. Hmm. Problem is Wobble, the one who isn't here. If the curses beyond placed on his children that activate upon death are powerful enough to kill, they will take effect instantaneously. Hmm. Okay. Yeah, okay, cool. So Beyond might actually get actively involved in this arc. I was thinking we wouldn't get to see him much until. Yeah, I was thinking we wouldn't get to see him too much until we got to the Dark Continent. I figured that he was being saved a little bit for then. Interesting. Good shit. All right. Who the fuck is this? I fucking do not remember this character. Who the fuck is this? Someone help me out here. I have multiple lawsuits pending. You see? Oh, what I'm the plaintiff in all of them. By the way, I'm just going over the result. This is hilarious. Funny, dude. What I'm scared about is the stuff I'm suing for. All right, this is funny. Okay. I'm watching Better Call Saul right now, so like this lawyer shit is just really funny to me that it's it's here as well. I can't escape it. Head of the judicial, basically the head of any Slavian Kakin. All right. I like that this stuff is being addressed as well. It feels more real. Reddit next. So Beyond's smart as fuck. He's just enjoying reading the legalese for fun. Beyond's a funny dude like this. All right. Like that chapter quite a bit. Good shit. Who is this dude now? Have we seen this dude? I feel like we've seen this dude before. Have we seen this dude before? I feel like we've seen this dude before. Why can't I zoom in? What's going on? Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. So 413, I know this is the chapter people are really excited about. This shit is cool as usual. 30 minutes before special art. Yep. Cool, cool, cool. What? Oh, yeah, yeah, duh. Cause he's body swapped. Mmm. Good shit. Oh shit. I don't remember this shit. Hmm. I vaguely remember some poisoning plan. No, this is foggy for me. Whoa! My father beyond Netero against it. Whoa, 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 whoa. Hmm. No, no, no. Now I'm lost. Hold on. My target, but that your death by the curse could eradicate your guardian spirit beast's ability. The only sure way to avoid this was to bounce the curse back. Nope, not understanding this. I don't remember his guardian spirit beast's ability. Doesn't Benjamin have an ability that lets him gain the powers of his subordinates, something like that? Oh, Benjamin's guardian beast has a post-mortem Nen ability, but it hasn't been explained. Okay, makes sense. I was thinking that we already knew his ability because it was, but I forgot. That's his organic Nen ability, which is to gain the abilities of his subordinates. So I was trying to wrap my head around how that plays into here. But okay, cool, cool, cool. Oh, okay. You know what? I should just wait. I should just wait and read more carefully. Because it has answers as we go. Full Metal Alchemist is his ability. Combo Master Specialist. By being with the target for a certain time in total, it deciphers the details of the target's ability and then creates a weapon that could destroy or supplement and amplify said ability. Here we go. Cannot use Hatsu while the ability is being deciphered. Okay, cannot use Hatsu while the weapon is being transmuted. More powerful, effective, and influential. Ah, okay. So now he understands his ability. All right, but we don't understand the ability yet. What the fuck? Whoa. Whoa, 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 whoa. I should just read, right? I should read before asking you guys questions. Kill quietly and respectfully. I think no matter what, I feel like Serenik is ultimately going to be the main villain of, or the strongest villain of the princes. But some of their abilities, like Hulkenberg, Benjamin, it's hard to ignore. There's potential there for sure. He just picks up a gun. Mute Mus's ability secret window. Hmm. Camilla's ability is so cool. Oh shit. We got some One Piece maps. Here we go. We got the One Piece charts out. Okay, so they're going after Camilla. Oh, this is our gang of heroes. Forget who this dude is. This guy. Got some guards. Is this them trapped in the... Oh, no, never mind. This is Wobble's group. This. Yeah, I just need a big refresher on all this shit. This is... Alright. This is getting good, though. This is great. This is really exciting. I'm just gonna do a hard reread of this arc. I wonder how's Togashi ever gonna finish this storyline, though? Again, we're about 25% of the way there if we go by boat journey time. Don't remember what this assassination is that's going on. Are we on the lower floors? We're not on the lower floors, right? Okay. Is this a dude that's aiming to level up his net abilities? I just forget. Martial law. No. Or I guess this is martial law being executed, right? Okay. Yeah. It's crazy that all the princes just have to surrender essentially to what the first prince wants to do. He's one of Yeah, no, I get it. This guy's one of Benjamin's soldiers who just wants to get things going with martial law because he's excited, right? I can't wait for the order, yada yada. But whoever he seemed to take out is not actually taken out, right? To my understanding. Was he taken out? Like, what's going on here? What's this guy's hand doing? All right, continuing on. Hmm. I wonder how this arc will ever be adapted to anime. So much dialogue and thinking, or monologuing and thinking. Whoa! Touching a volunteer for a period of time can make him invincible for an equal. What? Okay, once that time runs out, Zetsu is forced on you for 100-fold for the same amount of time. After the Zetsu period, you receive a third of the damage you would have taken due to rebound of your own aura. Okay, that's interesting. I feel like this I've said this before, right? But like, it's so interesting in this arc, in this storyline. Togashi's really been stretching essentially what Nen can do, and it feels like, obviously there's Nen beasts and stuff like that that kind of, are a little cheat code to some degree, right? And a lot of them are from the ritual. But it does feel like we've got a lot more abilities in this arc where that are just fundamentally broken and kind of ridiculous, right? There's a lot of abilities that are just absurd, but they have caveats or drawbacks or whatever that make them seem a bit more fair. But the abilities themselves are just fundamentally, like, you know what I mean? Like, Nen used to be the powers of rubber and gum, right? I've been saying for a bit that, like, those sort of abilities nowadays are just kind of, it's just so outdated. It feels like it's from a different era, like a different, it makes sense. Togashi, that was like, when he's coming up with those abilities, he was a younger man 20 something years ago, right? Nowadays, he's much older. He's had more time to think. Maybe he's a different person now. He might like more abstract and more out there abilities, right? But you got to work with a world where some people's abilities are just like, again, like Hisoka's powers, it almost feels like, I've said this before in streams, but it's kind of like fucking Jerry West, like good old fundamentals and bullshit, right? Compared to whatever the fuck Serednik can do nowadays. And even this random guards ability, Invincible Hero, Lord of the Flies, it's got huge drawbacks, right? And obviously, Hisoka's still like an amazing fighter, top tier, or high tier, whatever you want to say. Very, 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 very exceptional fighter, whatever. But the abilities on their own, Nen abilities on their own, are inherently becoming more and more broken as we've gone along. And Togashi's having to come up with big drawbacks to excuse why they're so broken. Yeah. Gotcha, metagame 2 broken. Yeah, it feels like, I don't know. It just feels like old school stuff was like, Dark Magician, Blue Eyes White Dragon, and then new school stuff is like, Necros or well, I don't even know what people play nowadays. Yeah. Individual Nen abilities now create whole systems other characters have to engage with, like Morena with the killing game thing. Yeah, it's a totally, and the thing is that it's not relegated to just strong characters. It's clear that Togashi now likes this sort of more complex system version of Nen, even for random characters, Not to say Morena is a random character, of course she's very important, but it is not weird now to see random guard number 42 have an ability that turns this guy into an invincible superhero. A symbiotic attack from a team of Nen users cannot be blocked. I wonder what invincible means. Like, could Hulkenberg's arrow still work on him, or is he just fundamentally untouchable? Hmm. And this is all this just to be a word salad version of Stan's lol. the I'm not gonna get into Nen versus Stans. I think they have different strengths. But the thing is that Stans are easy to write in a sense because there's no rules, right? They're literally, even the few rules that initially Araki came up with for stands, stuff like, stuff like, oh, they can't do things like create a mirror dimension and stuff like that. Even those were done away with very quickly. Stands have no rules, right? So you don't need to create, like with Nen, the system was created much earlier on. So now there needs to be a lot more logical reasons. Like there were a lot of rules with Nen. So now if you want to create abilities that are particularly broken or unfair, you need to create a lot more in-story reasons that kind of play with the rules of the game that explain why you can do something like give somebody invincibility for X period of time or whatever, right? It becomes much more about the restrictions, the sort of bargaining of like how good's the ability compared to the cost, etc. JoJo stands, it's kind of just like, hey, this person's got a really fucking good ass stand that lets him fucking manipulate causality, and this dude's stand lets him control like a fly or something, and it's just the way life is, you know? Because Hunter x Hunter has a rule system, and now as the stories progress, Togashi wants to create more out there abilities, but keep it within that system. He now has to create more contractually logical rules and stipulations, etc., to allow those abilities to work. I think the urn ritual shit, right? That's a great way. He's in this arc, you can already... That's the big thing I've been feeling with his writing in this arc, and I feel like a lot of it's got to do with the hiatuses and the fact that he's much older now and has had more time to think and come up with ideas. I feel like he's reached a point in the story where he now wants much more creative freedom with what he can do with Nen abilities. And so a lot of the early Hunter x Hunter was focused on the main character's growth, right? Gon and Killua's growth. So all of their Nen growth, their skills growth has to be very logically approached step by step for them to build these powers. Like Killua can now use electricity and God whatever, right? Gon can now punch hard and shit like that, right? But that's arcs and arcs of like laying the foundation of rules, right? But then enough time passes and Togashi reaches a point where he wants to write an arc like this, where he wants lots of crazy abilities, and he needs logical reasons for there to be so many people to be able to use really powerful Nen abilities, when a lot of this is supposed to work better with just average civilians or bodyguards or like princes who don't know anything about Nen, right? So in this arc, it's really interesting because he's essentially had to come up with a ton of different reasons and mechanisms to basically blow open, like after spending so long coming up with the rules of Nen and what it takes to like really become skilled, etc. Now those have become restrictive to his style of storytelling. So, or the new style of storytelling that he wants to lay out, at least with this boat arc. And so a lot of this boat arc is basically him coming up with workarounds to the limitations that he created early on. So that's why there's so many mechanisms in the boat arc for characters to become very proficient in Nen, or at least have really cool Nen abilities a lot faster than they ordinarily would. Like Morena's abilities are out, the Spirit Urn ritual is a route, right? Like Kurapika's shit that he's doing. There's lots of different angles to it that he's coming up with to just work around what we've kind of been limited by for some time. So it's interesting. And then it's funny because like in this whole, this whole assortment of characters, this menagerie of characters with really wacky out there Nen abilities, we've still got old school players that are still in the game that are being brought in, like the Spiders, like Hisoka and stuff like that. And it's like, well, Hisoka's ability, again, I think it's fucking funny that Hisoka is such an important character. Having the power of rubber and gum is just such a fucking joke compared to what a lot of these princes can do. Again, Hisoka himself is such a high level combatant that he makes it work, but it's just looking at like dude, it's like the fucking 2020s and you're bringing in Jerry West shit here, right? Some characters, their abilities still translate, I think, really well to fit right in here, like Krollo's. Krollo's ability is almost like a preview of what a lot of the prince's abilities are like, right? Like the ability to gain more abilities, that's very common, it feels like, in the Succession War. And Kurapika, Togashi always wrote Kurapika pretty open-ended with all of the ridiculous bullshit that his chains could do. It's just insane. So even a lot of the abilities that Kurapika showcasing this arc, some of them involve like being able to steal abilities and stuff. That's very in line with what the Succession War has been. Anyway, just my 2 cents. I just think it's interesting from like, a writing perspective, the evolution of what he found enjoyable to write early on versus what he wants to write now. But he wants to keep it all the same story, right? So it's kind of like I feel like he's got a new mentality of how he wants to write shit, but he's got to play with the parameters of Hunter x Hunter, and therefore we've got him essentially reworking a lot of the Nen system without breaking the rules, but reworking a lot of the limits to them and the concept of what Nen powers kind of should be. It was Chairman Netro's last order. His order was, yeah. That woman's ability, maybe we could use it somehow. I don't remember that woman. Doesn't make me want to hang out outside of work. That's a funny line. Ones who feared collapsing and losing the protection of the spirit beasts are the current king and the diehards who want to be the heir to his power, beyond and the high ranking princes. Hmm. Get him later on another charge. And a man child who loves strategy games. He'll take a challenge and won't refuse a game of cat and mouse. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, the second option has a lot of caveats. Prove that everyone who leaves the ship during the battle loses the legitibility. Participating in the ceremony was the condition. That's a lot of things they got to prove. Worst case is that Prince. Yeah, and now we get. Oh man, I wish I wasn't spoiled on this because I think I would have really liked to have this chapter cut to them like that, like Kurapika referencing his friends in reference to this seemingly unsolvable situation of protecting the prince. I think that would have been really good because like I saw it spoiled for me on Twitter and I was like, nothing really happens, you know. We just see Gon and Killua, but now seeing it in the flow of events and what leads to them being referenced, I think that would have been a really good feel good moment for me. So I regret that a little bit. All right. All right, we are caught up. We are caught up. I need to do a hard once over for everything, not just that. I need the whole arc's perspective because even the Beyond Curse, I'm like iffy on. I need a refresher on everything that was established with Beyond in the previous run of chapters. Him having children mixed in all this, and then also the curse situation. I need refreshers on everything. I gotta reread. I gotta reread. Um, I think Beyond is gonna. I don't think Beyond is. I think Beyond is Dark Continent threat stuff. He's Dark Continent threat stuff. I think he's gonna be around for that. Too much has been set up for that. So I think this will kind of introduce him, but not have him play the main role of the villain. I think Serednik is still gonna continue to be the main role. Be the main villain of the arc. Yeah. Gyro still has to meet John. Gon. How's it pronounced? Gyro or Gyro or Hyro or like Hero? Reminder that Leorio hasn't gotten any panels. Yeah, I don't think Leorio. I don't consider Leorio to be a main character of Hunter x Hunter. He was initially introduced as such, but I just don't think Togashi has enough character work to do with him to make him a main character. He's a good staple of the series, but that's about it. Yeah, the last two pages are so peak. The contrast between Kurapika's jadedness, where he didn't even understand why Bill wouldn't work for Beyond, with his trust in his friends, makes me want to scream. Yeah, and Kurapika's just such a different person than that. I guess Kurapika is in temperament more similar to Killua, but Gon is just so, is like the opposite of everything that Kurapika kind of is bringing to the table here. Chillax, this is the food. Yeah, I'm like, how's it pronounced? Is it pronounced like the food? Leora is going to be the main character of the Dark Continent? I don't think so. I personally think that the Dark Continent, I do think Gon and Killua are going to end up there, one way or another, probably through fast travel somehow. Um, I think that Jing is going to be a main character in the Dark Continent initially, and I think that Gon and Killua will eventually be there. Maybe read from the start of the arc. There's some important dynamics between Beyond and members of the Zodiac that might be relevant soon. Yeah, there's so much going on. I really wonder how many chapters he's going to put out with this time around. So let me see. Let me see first how many chapters this arc has been going. How many chapters is the boat arc in Hunter Hunter? What's the arc called? Is it the boat arc? What is it called? Dark Continent, Succession War. I should have known that. It's already 72 chapters. Is that right? Oh my god. How many chapters was Chimera? This has got to go longer than Chimera, right? Way more characters at play. $132. 72 chapters, 132. There's no way Togashi just goes on a run, right? And just puts out like weekly chapters. Maybe he's had enough time to plan. Maybe he's able to put out weekly chapters from now on till the end of the arc. That'd be awesome, right? Or you think it's just going to be another 10 chapters, maybe? They combined the Dark Continent expedition with the Succession War and the official arcs. Yeah, 10 chapters every 4 years. That's not really doable, but maybe he's going to be able to pick up the pace or something. I don't know. Because he's gotten so much time to sit and plan. Takashi isn't going back weekly. I mean, he had a break just now, too, which I think is funny. Said he wrote at least until chapter 450. I wonder if that's like the halfway point of the arc or something. The difficult thing with the Succession War is that even if, right, let's pretend that this storyline was just focused on the top level, right? Just the princes, right? Even if it was focused on just the princes, this is an absurdly ambitious undertaking with the amount of characters and plot threads and mysteries here. Just an absurd undertaking. And the fact that that's just one segment of everything that he's trying to do, and then everything below is going to overlap. It's just, I have no idea how he's going to do this. This is basically like starting a brand new gigantic manga from scratch, practically, that happens to have some previous characters from storylines that we know of in Hunter x Hunter. He will give you 10 chapters and you will love it. Yeah. He has 6 more chapters fully done. The 10 after that are inked. The 10 after that are planned. Okay. So we're getting at least a 20 chapter run here. I think Togashi can finish the Succession War. The issue is what happens after that. I don't know. So what's his age right now? What's his age? Let's see. He is 60 years old. Is he in good health? No, he's not in good health, right? That's the whole point, actually. He's not in good health. Let me look at his photo. Does he look healthy? I'm reading about why he's so stubborn with the writing, or sorry, with the drawing. I think I'll just never understand why he doesn't want to just outsource most of the writing and drawing to a team. He's been doing well recently. Because, again, with Hunter x Hunter, I think scene direction wise, I think Togashi's strong scene direction wise. I think, I just don't think artistically Hunter x Hunter's art is irreplaceable. I think that there's specific panels and moments that are very well drawn in Hunter x Hunter, but page to page, I view Hunter x Hunter's artwork as like among the least, how do I say, least exceptional. Like, it's not bad, it's just really not special out of most manga that I personally read. It has a unique style and feel, for sure. I'm not trying to shit on his art. And when he really goes ham on certain panels, it's great. But I really feel like this is one where it just could be outsourced. I don't know. Yeah, it's not like Hunter x Hunter is like Berserk. If it were Miura level art, I could understand, says Ibrahim. Yeah. I mean, honestly, even One Piece, I feel like when I'm thinking of art styles, right? For me, Obviously, I'm always going to be like, I think that Oda should let other people draw for him as much as he can, because I don't think One Piece's biggest appeal is the artwork to me. But I would say that Oda's art style is still something, like, even if I were comparing Oda to Togashi, I'm like, even between those two, I'd be like, Oda's art style, I think, is more essential to the One Piece reading experience than Togashi's art style is to the Hunter x Hunter reading experience. I strongly, like, if you're the One Piece art style has a certain level of distinctive character to it, you know? Again, it's stuff that I think other artists could easily replicate for Oda. Togashi, I feel like the level of how distinctive the art style feels or how important it is to me for my reading experience is it's lower than most manga. Um, you know what I mean? That's a personal preference thing. That's a personal preference thing. That's not really to say one's a better artist or the other, or whatever. But yeah, like Togashi is one mangaka who, above all else, I'm really in it more so for the writing, the art. Take it or leave it. It can be whatever. If he wants to come in and just go hard on like the crazy important panels, like when he first gave us that depiction of the Dark Continent, I think that could be a great compromise or something like that. But yeah, Ace by Comebacks says he just doesn't want to share his work. It's not that deep. Yeah, I think at a certain point though, he's got to pick between sharing the work or getting to finish the work, because you might only get one or the other. You know. In fact, it's likely only one or the other. The reason why Hunter x Hunter has been in the bad situation is for Togashi to avoid another Three Kings arc happening again. What's a Three Kings arc? I don't know. Jordan Vance says, accepted we won't get the Dark Continent. It's rough. Green Tornado X is the art is crazy. Melody scene, fourth Prince Beast, Crollo, Hisoka, crazy, amazing art scenes. I think that there are moments that are really good. Like the melody scene, I 100% agree. If he wants to go for those, and just dedicate his time to those, that's great. I would 100% encourage that. But in the 4 chapters we just read of Hunter x Hunter, right? So that's 4 chapters. I'd say the only scene where I'm like, it makes sense that he himself would really personally wanted to draw that is the last 2 pages of this chapter. That's all. Most of the, like, out of the last 4 chapters that we read, there really isn't anything special art-wise that it's like, oh, only Togashi could have drawn this. In fact, with Togashi, I would go as far as to say that handing the artwork off to somebody else would probably make for a stronger reading experience overall, chapter to chapter. Because his art style is not difficult to replicate, and it's probably pretty easy to elevate, you know? Um, Again, that's a time constraint though. When he wants to go hard on certain panels, obviously those are things that are exceptional that only he can do. I've accepted not getting the Dark Continent arc, but not getting to see Jing in action is what hurts. Yeah. And I think that that's just the Jing Parison stuff is just not going to come into play till then, right? I'm really interested in this gatekeeper figure or character or whatever it is that they're going to meet that takes them to the Dark Continent. Because it's clear that Togashi's imagined this arc is going to conclude. Then we're going to get a little mini arc, it seems like, with the stopping point and the gatekeeper, and then we get to the Dark Continent. So this trip, from what I recall, doesn't even get them to the Dark Continent, you know? Anders says Berserk's boat arc makes more progress chapter for chapter than Hunter x Hunter's boat arc, lol. Yeah, but from my personal opinion, Berserk's boat arc is, I think, the weakest arc in Berserk. I haven't read the new arcs with the author change. To me, that's the weakest arc in Berserk, so I don't think it's really like. I feel like Togashi's going for his most ambitious and potentially most impressive arc right here, whereas I felt like the Berserk boat arc was Miura at his maybe least creative and least unique in terms of storytelling. So I don't know. Steve Zaporium says, I think the gatekeepers are a race as opposed to an individual. I guess I've forgotten exactly how they're described. But yeah, it sounds like there's going to be... clearly, the gatekeeper part is important because Togashi established that... Because Togashi could have just written that this is a trip that gets people to the Dark Continent, or, you know, the drop-off point and then go to the Dark Continent, but he established that there's some transition period that he's got to write as well. And Terry says, the only thing I want from Pariston is to understand what he has in common with Paris Hilton and what it says about his powers. That's a funny point. BD Productions 34 says, I don't know, I used to think we would never get Hisoka versus Chrollo, but Togashi dropped that out of nowhere. I think Togashi's aware of what the fans want. We might get some surprise Jing action. Yeah, but that at least made sense, like, narratively where we were at, where it wasn't, from what I recall, I don't think it was just in the middle of... No, I guess it was... From what I recall... No, it was in the middle of an arc, right? It was sometime shortly after chairman election. I guess what I'm saying is we weren't like in deep in some other plot. We were already that whole arc was kind of it was post chairman election, right? So it was the setup period to get to the Dark Continent expedition, right? So that Hisoka Chrollo section inherently went into a transitional period in the arc. I feel like it's less likely that in the middle of this very, very dense succession war that Togashi's going to cut over to Jing and Pariston and or like, you know, just show Jing in action for some reason or the other. You know, I think that's less likely, but I might be wrong. I mean, we might cut to Gon and Killua for all we know. Yeah. We might get Jing in 7 years, yeah. Did Chimera Ant arc really take 15 years? That's crazy. 15 years. That is officially considered all succession war since after the election. Sure. I would say at the very least it was in a transitional section of the story, right? So let's say the beginning of the succession war where everybody's getting ready to get on the boat. We're not in the thick of it yet, right? So now we're deep in the thick of it. I think it's less likely that we cut away to a totally unrelated conflict, but who knows? BD Productions says, I think the chaos of the boat is going to force the Zodiacs to get involved. Yeah, but I don't know about Jing specifically. Like, he's been separated physically from the events of the arc. And Arnami says, tell me with a straight face I'm expected to care about guard number 55, lol. Yeah, I think, I mean, this arc has a lot of shallower and more replaceable characters because it's more of the, you know, it's more of a, it's like a death house vibe, right? Like it's like a kill box, right? Like I imagine by the end of this, a lot of the characters are going to die, right? So you need a lot more expendable characters to make this whole thing work. We're not supposed to be too invested in a lot of these characters, but I think the main ones should be. I'm hoping that we get the main characters fleshed out to a degree that they're really interesting, like a Serednik, etc., right? Chimera Ant took 8 years. Is that right? Okay. Gonzo says we'll have a mini Gon and Killua arc like we had a Phantom Troop mini arc in Chimera Ant. I think that so I think next chapter will tell us a lot, right? I think next chapter will tell us a lot if we're gonna get some Gon Killua stuff. I feel like the Succession War will conclude before they are involved in, like, I think that they will get to the Dark Continent in their own way. I think there will be some fast travel method that happens. I don't know. Yeah, Jing's not on the boat is the thing. So it'd have to be literally cutting away from the events of the boat to see a Jing fight. I don't know if that would happen. If we have a mini arc with Gon and Killua, then we're screwed, LMAO. Yeah, one series of predictions that I've seen people talk about is just, or maybe it was even you guys in chat last time we talked about Hunter x Hunter, but um, I feel like this arc is tight. It's going to be Kurapika focused, right? Then I think once we transition to Dark Continent, we will get more focused on Jing, etc. Things will go wrong on the Dark Continent is very possible, and then Gon and Killua will be transported there through unknown means after we get the Meteor City storyline. Like I think we get a stopping point with the current expedition, like the Vanguard, right? Then I think we get Gon and Killua sort of storyline, and then mini arc, whatever, and then there will be a route to get them to the Dark Continent, where they will get to once again take their place as main characters of the story. Yeah, I don't get why Gyro matters or Gyro matters. I'm sure it's leading to something, but I don't know. And Tyree says, I honestly don't care about Gon anymore. His story already ended, but Kakashi refused to let the story end with him. His story and Killua's story, their storylines ended, but I feel like that's kind of setting up for the next phase of who they're going to be. So I think that there is still a direction for them, you know? I personally have never really cared for Gon as a main character. I respect the writing in the Chimera Ant arc, but in terms of just enjoying having Gon around, he ranks for me very, very low on my list of anime manga protagonists. Towards the very bottom, if I'm being frank. Not a critique of the character, personal preference, right? And in general, you know, the Gon Killua, in a story that's as dark as Hunter x Hunter and mature in many ways, right? Having two little kids as like the main characters, you know, it's fun in its own way in spots or whatever, but it's also just like, sometimes I'm just like, I don't know, like, they've generally been the least important part of the story for me. I'm always more interested in the larger plot that forms around them, the characters that we get arc to arc. That's just me. So yeah, with that in mind, it's just like, yeah, I just don't, this is turning into my favorite arc, partly because maybe Gon and Killua aren't even there, so everything feels like it can lean into the actual, like, Hunter x Hunter stuff, the stuff that is feeling to me about Hunter x Hunter. But that's a personal preference, you know? I wouldn't be upset if Gon and Killua come back into the story. I just feel like they themselves feel wildly out of place, even if they were to be dropped into this arc, because this arc is very, very cerebral, right? It's a lot of careful chess moves, but a lot of like so Gon and Killua, I think, functionally don't work in this arc, the more I think about it, because Gon and Killua are doers, right? They go in, they do stuff. Even Killua, who's more hesitant than Gon in a lot of ways, they will fly by the seat of their pants and get themselves into trouble and generally stir up problems, you know? Obviously, like, they just throw themselves into stuff, right? Killua is the more conservative and, careful of the two. But even then, if you just look at, like, York New, you look at the Chimera Ant arc, like, they will put themselves into situations and make things happen. This storyline that we're in right now, the more I think about it, this storyline functions so well because it is an arc where the period of everyone setting up and moving subtly and carefully and methodically has slowly built up a very intricate web where, you know, it's that idea of a powder keg that's set to blow up, right? Getting everything really, really tense, all the relationships and dynamics, letting them sort of play out the tensions, the alliances. You want all of that tension to really, really build. If you were to drop Gon and Killua into this boat arc, then all of Kurapika is very careful, methodical, sort of like slow the conflict, keep things in check, don't let things break into all-out battle. It wouldn't fly, because Killua, like, Gon would want to get in there and fuck some shit up. It would just be what it is. Gon would not allow certain things to happen. So this arc functionally does not play to the... That's actually more interesting the more I think about it, which is like, why does this arc have such a different feel? It's because Gon and Killua fundamentally do not allow a sort of slow, steady Game of Thrones sort of chessboard to develop over time, you know? You need to remove them from the equation to allow that to happen, right? So everybody in the storyline is a careful player. Maybe the most reckless figure might be someone like Hisoka, and even Hisoka knows when to go incognito and play the long game, you know? So I think that's interesting. I think that Gon and Killua had to be removed from the storyline to make it work. I think that when we get to the Dark Continent, that might be a good time to reintroduce them to the story, because now we're back into the flow, most likely of adventure, exploring, getting into trouble, and dealing with big problems head on. You know, I mean, I'm not saying that they're going to go just fight and beat up all the monsters in the Dark Continent, but Dark Continent is when the adventure happens again, right? Generally speaking, Hunter x Hunter arcs so far, they have all been um, very action-packed plot lines, right? And there is a sense of just things constantly happening and moving. This arc is the first arc where it's been like hold the line, and it's like the tide is slowly building up, slowly rising. You know, even Camarant arc, which is a very slow arc, it's them charging in the first place, getting beat up, then a training arc, right? That's the only time Gon and Killua kind of stays still, which is when it's a training arc. But it's set up for them to go back in action again, right? Disagree, Togashi can make it work if he wants, just put Gon and Killua in tier 3 to 5. He can, but at the very least, in the main focus of the storyline, which is the princes, they don't really function as well, you know? And even if you put them in the lower levels, they've never exactly been stealthy, but you could put them in the lower levels and still have the story function. I just think that vibe-wise, it feels more like this is a storyline for where everybody on all the levels, all the major characters are cerebral chess players. Gon and Killua are kind of like fish out of water in that context. I just don't think that they work as well for the story. But, you know, obviously Togashi can play things a different way. If they're going to be given stuff to do outside in the outside world to assist, I think that could work. I think that they don't function as well with the vibe of the boat, especially considering the boat is a 2-month journey. Yeah, Gon doesn't even have Nen. My assumption is always just that Gon's going to get Nen back through some means. But yeah. It's like York Nuno, Gon and Killua can do their own thing if they absolutely need to, not that it is the right thing. But again, York Nu is like a fast-paced storyline. It wasn't, there was like a little bit of setup where they're hatching their plan, the spiders, but it's a storyline where things were happening fast. This is a storyline where we are, what did we say, like 60-something chapters in, right? 70 chapters in. And there has yet to be any sort of major breakout in conflict, you know? Gon is literally on Nen disability benefits. Slack Shooter says, in order to be a good character in the story, Gon needs to be replaced with essentially an entirely different character who happens to be named Gon and looks like him and has all of his memories. I don't know about that. Wobble being off the boat just makes things confusing and too easy for Kurapika. Yeah, do we think Wobble's off the boat or not off the boat? Let me do a little poll. And Tyree says, I think it is bad for Gon to regain Nen. Would be spit on sacrifice and make Nanika more of a Deus Ex Machina. I mean, I think that we've already crossed that bridge, though. I think the reality is that Togashi needed Gon to have some sort of significant consequence. Having known Nen for a long time feels like Togashi's way of doing that. He's going to bring Gon back into the story at some point, you know? There's too many things that are set up. Even just Gon versus Hisoka is a long time set up battle, you know? Okay, so interesting split. Interesting split. Abdul Aziz Jalal says, tell me, Ward, has Hunter x Hunter been Hunter x Huntering properly? Yeah, I like these last several chapters quite a bit. Great stuff. You know what's interesting? So I saw people on, I thought I'd been spoiled. The one thing I'd been spoiled on was the Gon Killua panel. That's it. That's the only thing I was spoiled on. I thought I'd been spoiled that Chrollo versus Hisoka round 2 was about to happen. Because I saw people on Twitter and stuff debating like Corolla versus Hisoka round 2. How's that gonna go? Right? There was no setup for that here, so I guess it's just people just wanted to debate that. I guess I was kind of expecting there to be I sincerely thought I'd been spoiled that Corolla versus Hisoka round 2 had been set up, but it seems we're some ways away from that. Green Tornado X says, I think off the boat, but man, Kurapika having to choose between the eyes versus saving Prince Wobble has always been my ideal scenario for this arc. I do hope that it's not as predictable. I mean, I think that is the direction that we're going towards, which is basically like Kurapika's two things are revenge and like avenging his family, getting the eyes back on one end, and then the duty that he's been given, which he's becoming more and more emotionally invested in, which is protecting the baby, right? Protecting the child and the mother, right? So, it's so I hope it's more creative than that, because everything else about this arc is so creative, but I'm never that moved by revenge storylines in storytelling in general. Like, I'm cool with them if they're like short, but I've never really liked them in long storylines in general, just because they always get to roughly they play with similar ideas generally from all the versions you see, which is like, revenge is bad, and you're kind of going down a really dark path if you're devoting yourself to revenge, and yada yada, and it's more so important to protect things or value what you have, yada yada, move on. There's so many different angles to it, but it's rare that the story's just like, revenge was the really good one, you picked the right choice there, So I don't know, Togashi might go a really tragic route, maybe Kurapika fucking dies at the end, or whatever. I think for me, the only storyline that truly, truly did revenge, like a protagonist that's primarily motivated by revenge, that I really, really enjoyed the character arc of, was Vinland Saga. And with very, very minor spoilers, people don't say anything in the chat. Very minor spoilers. I think I was able to enjoy it in the context of Vinland Saga because the primary storyline where the main character was focused on revenge did not really center around the main character. It became Thorfinn was not my favorite. He was my least favorite character in Vinland Saga during that first arc. During that first arc, he was my least favorite character. But luckily, the focus was not actually on him. So there was more interesting things to delve into, in my opinion, more interesting character routes. And then the focus finally shifted back to him after a key shift had sort of happened. Like for the farm arc, it shifted back to him after a sort of key shift had happened in terms of his revenge journey, without really spoiling anything further. Anyway, I don't know. I think that's one of the reasons I'm not as interested in, I haven't been as interested in, again, Berserk. Love that manga. Phenomenal series. No real critiques about Berserk or anything like that are big in any sort of way. But in terms of personal preference, I've never really enjoyed Guts as a main character, because it's essentially a main character who is, this is reductive, this is simplifying it, but he is largely driven by his anger, his revenge, etc., like desire for revenge, hate for Griffith, and split between that and his, his love for Casca and where his priorities should lie, etc., right? Like, that's a very simplistic way of narrowing down Guts' general conflict, but a lot of his conflict is based on that kind of being the kernel, and just playing with the dichotomy of that, right? Where he's falling in that in that dilemma, right? So that's just not engaging for me. Again, Kurapika is not a super engaging character to me either, because for me, revenge-driven main characters, again, it's just not that interesting. But everybody else in this arc is really interesting to me. So yeah. Morge doesn't like suffering. I like having suffering in stories for whatever that's worth, but specifically following a main character who's focused on revenge, for me, becomes tiresome at a point. That's all. Megazord says, I think if you read the Succession War and pay attention to Kurapika's new storyline, you'll see a lot of potential, including ones that will bring back the eyes / spiders / possibly giving up revenge. I mean, to me, it's two routes, which is like, either Kurapika does give up the revenge, has some realizations, yada yada. Blah 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 blah. There's even parallels to him and the spiders in the sense that the spiders are essentially trying to get, not trying to get, but they treat the whole world as having wronged them, and so they, in a sense, parallel Kurapika, and they're not really out for revenge, but they're basically out to dish it back to the world, or they treat the world as something that deserves retribution or whatever. I could see Kurapika giving up revenge, choosing to value the life of the baby, etc., or whatever. Like, there'll be some crossroads probably that he'll have to reach as a character. I do agree that the groundwork is there. I just don't find that to be that interesting, because this stuff is already, it's character storylines that I just have never really pulled by that character storyline. I don't know. Didn't Vinland Saga end, or is it still going on? I'm just talking about the first 2 arcs here. BD Production says, what is about revenge stories that turn you off so much? I think because they largely all feel similar in terms of the emotion that the main characters, they all have a similar sort of, okay, it's a few things, okay? It's a few things. I don't have problems with them. I'm not going to be like, oh, these are poorly written characters. This is personal preference in terms of what I find interesting. One, I would say, number one is that it's not something that it's not an emotion that I usually find to be that relatable, I guess. And that doesn't mean that every character needs to be written in a way that's relatable. But revenge in particular is like a kind of go-to character through line that you see in countless times in fiction. Like, oh, this person is driven by revenge. They want to get vengeance or whatever. And it's just insert here what happened. Their mom, their dad, their sister, their brother, their daughter, whatever. Like, something happened, right? They got cheated, conned, whatever. Like, something it's the same thing, you know? And it's like, now they've dedicated their lives to getting revenge on whoever did them like this, right? And it's something like I think I and most normal people don't really have something like that, where we built our lives around trying to get revenge on something or the other, you know? So there is a sort of disconnect there where it's like, okay, so I just have to essentially feel that I'm on board with this character. Every other thing is them being obsessed with getting revenge. Cool, I can put myself in those shoes to some degree, right? But it's also just the repetitiveness of those sort of storylines where it's like, they're driven by this thing. Most likely, in most storylines, it's going to be some roundabout way of basically being like, it's bad that they're so focused on revenge. This is not actually fulfilling, yada, 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 right? Like, that's generally where it's going to go. Or maybe they get revenge, but they learn a lesson in the process. I don't know. It never feels that unique to me whenever it's like this character. Because you know the character, it's also just the way the character's always going to be. They're probably going to be constantly angsty, a little bit angry, pissed off, yada, yada. I don't know. It's not bad writing. Again, this is just a preference thing, you know? It's just a preference thing. Yo Wizard Chill says, then Morge, why do you like Kagurabachi? Also, the manga is back next week. So that's actually a huge example, which is that initially I thought I wouldn't like Kagurabachi, and it's one of the reasons that I and many others made fun of it, which is like, it starts with what seems like edgy, angry protagonist. He's got a scar on his face. He wants to wake up every day with fresh hate. You know, it's all of the revenge tropes built into one character. And this is all in the first chapter, right? It's one of the reasons that many people made fun of it, because it's just so by the numbers, and it's just like, all right, all right, here we go again. Revenge. This guy's out for revenge because they killed his dad. We saw a bit of his dad in the first chapter. We're supposed to really, really care about his dad. Yada, yada, whatever, right? That's what it felt like at the beginning. So to me, towards the beginning, it just felt like I'm probably not going to care that much about Chihiro. I didn't give Kagurabachi much credit starting out. I began to love Kagurabachi a lot more as it progressed further and further, and it became more like, yes, he's still, that's still the kernel, right? of what got the whole thing started. But Chihiro doesn't come across as a character who is constantly talking about revenge as the story progresses. He's actually he surprised me in a lot of ways as it went on, as his approach turned out to be his approach, his reasoning, the things that he desires. It's all very level-headed, logical. He's not somebody that's like constantly driven by emotion or anger, right? He is what do you call it? He is still driven by what happened with his father, but he's also trying to understand more the big picture. He's focused on getting off the swords back, right? He wants them out of evildoers' hands. Revenge, I rarely think of Chihiro now as a character who is defined or driven by revenge. That's not one of the first things that comes top of mind when I'm thinking about him and his motivations, even though that is still there. Does that make sense? Anyway. Exactly. Taptir Treviso says, I thought Kagurabachi was never about vengeance, since vengeance was merely just a spark for his journey. Exactly. And that's why I thought that initially it was just cringe, because it was just like standard revenge, edgy, etc. As the story progresses, that's not really who Chihiro is, and that's not the experience I have reading it, you know? So it took something that I thought was going to be pretty straightforward and generic, and took it in a more like, it was kind of refreshing to be like, oh, okay, we're not going to have him like yelling about about his dad every other chapter or whatever, you know? Kagurabachi, 9 out of 10, 9 out of 10. Yeah, I think I got it at a solid... For me, like, I think it's hard to rate series when they're so early in their stories, but I would say for how it concluded, I guess you could say the first big movement of the story, for me, it's a solid 9. Yeah. Yeah, I think the start my day with fresh hatred, that's exactly the type of writing that I don't care for when it comes to revenge storylines, because it never feels unique or fresh to me. And I think that's why I ended up really liking Kagurabachi, because I thought it was going to be like that, but it turned out that whole start my day with fresh hatred stuff is really not what Chihiro's character is actually like as we go on. Have you read Drama Queen? It's revenge driven with aliens. No, I've not read that. Not read that. BD Production says, it sounds like you just really don't like super edgy characters. I think it depends on the definition of edgy. I think edgy is defined in different ways for people. There's a lot of things also come down to characters that I enjoy in certain capacities. So, see if this makes sense. So, if we look at like Avatar The Last Airbender, right? My favorite character in Avatar The Last Airbender is Zuko. Zuko is a character who is angsty, angry, a little bit like he's darker in a sense. He's not like happy-go-lucky like Aang or whatever. And he has a fantastic character arc throughout it, right? Maybe you describe Zuko as edgy, I don't know, or whatever. He's got a scar, burn marks and stuff, everything, right? Like, you know, he's got all the classic traits. He's my favorite character in Avatar. I tend to really enjoy those characters as side characters. I don't enjoy following a main character when if like they're driven in that sort of way, right? So I didn't enjoy Thorfinn, for example, initially, but luckily he kind of actually shifts to a background role during his particularly angsty period as a main character. And then the new version of Thorfinn that we kind of get in the farm arc, he was my favorite main character of any story for a while. I think the third major arc of Vinland Saga ruins a lot of that for me, but does that make sense? Vegeta is my favorite character in Dragon Ball Z. I don't think I would love Vegeta if he was the main character, right? Berserk, Guts, phenomenal character. I get tired of reading a character who's, you know, for better or worse, going berserk all the time. It depends. It's different roles. It's similar, for example, I love characters like Usopp and Zenitsu, but I don't enjoy those character types as the primary protagonists. I like them as thrown in, if that makes sense. For me, it's just there's different things I like in different capacities, if that makes sense. Edgy is a relatively base thing. I don't really want to put edgy's like a broader way to put it, because I don't want to reduce characters to just that. So it also just depends what you mean by edgy. Yeah, Slowpoke Picnic says Kagurabachi was getting clowned on when it first came out because the darker / edgier stuff was becoming overdone and can be quite cookie cutter and two-dimensional. Yeah. I 100% agree on that, and that's why, for me, that's just not a compelling sort of thing. I don't know. Annie VQ918 says, what about Sasuke? Isn't he like Vegeta? So Sasuke I always disliked, straight up. I've said before, like, oh, lots of times I can enjoy those edgier characters or whatever if they're side characters, but that's not automatic. That doesn't mean I just automatically do like those type of characters. Does that make sense? Sasuke for me is a big, what do you call? Is a big outlier in that sense, in that he's a very popular character, obviously. Annoyed the hell out of me. Annoyed the hell out of me. A lot of it is Sasuke specific stuff. I don't want to get, I feel like if I go too far into why I dislike him, Naruto fans will correct me, because the reality is, like, my memory of everything that happens in Naruto is not perfect. But a lot of it is just Sasuke is just an asshole throughout it. Like, he sincerely feels like an asshole for no real reason. Like, he's an asshole to Naruto, he's an asshole to Sakura, he's an asshole to so many people. And I think past a certain point, there's not really an excuse for it. And he does all of that before betraying everyone to go join Orochimaru. Does that make sense? Like, to me, Sasuke is just a character that's an asshole every single step of the way, and every single decision that he makes is grating and pisses me off. That's basically it. It's just every single major life decision he has is one that pisses me off, and I almost never feel sympathy for him. And Ranami says Morge hates Law, so it makes sense that he hates Sasuke LMAO. Oh, that's another example. That's like kind of like Trafalgar Law having a revenge storyline against Doflamingo. It's just, I mean, it's not one of the main reasons I dislike Law, but it doesn't do him any help, at least for my personal preferences, which is just like, all right, he wants revenge on Doflamingo. We got this. I do view him as a Sasuke ripoff in a lot of ways. But again, the thing with Law is that I like Law better than I like Sasuke. I've always said that the main reason I dislike Law is how he was introduced into the story. If Law was introduced into the story very early on from the beginning, like imagine you swap Zoro's introduction with Law, and instead of Zoro we get Law, right? I'd probably love Law as a character. It's the way he was shoehorned into the story to just take it over, and the fact that it's like, okay, now we're on this dude's revenge quest. I was just like, why the fuck are we on this dude's revenge quest to take down Doflamingo? I don't know. Edward 40 Hand says, bro, you gotta read Naruto again if you don't get why Sasuke is like that. So again, this is like the only thing that, this is the thing that pisses me off with those sort of discussions, which is like, it's not a media literacy test. Not everything's a media literacy test. You can sometimes understand why a character is the way that they are and still find them annoying as fuck, you know? Case in point, fucking Yamato. Yamato was holed up in isolation and grew up in Onigashima or whatever, and the only thing she had to read was fucking Odin's diary. Inspired by it, whatever. Now she thinks that she's so fucking deluded, she wants to be like Odin, she thinks she's Odin. Cool. You can write a logical reasoning for why that is. That has no relevance whatsoever to whether or not the character still pisses you off despite that. I do not give a shit what happened to Sasuke as a child. The way that he acts throughout all of part 1 makes him an asshole. It just does. It does not matter that he had all of this trauma or whatever. Those two things are not mutually exclusive. He can have gone through a lot of trauma, be driven by revenge, hate, blah, 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 blah. And he's still a fucking asshole to everyone that he meets, and he's annoying as fuck. Those two things can both be true, you know? Anyway. What about the Scabbards' revenge? You're right. The 50 millionth time that the Scabbards all cried about Odin, I can't imagine why that wasn't that moving for me. And Ranami says Sasuke is the most layered and nuanced character in Naruto who undergoes constant growth throughout the series. I can view that as probably being true. and still not enjoy the character or any of his decisions or even a single line of dialogue from him. Slowpoke Picnic says, Yo Morge, couldn't make it the last stream, but I have a prediction. Do you think we could get Luffy dying and going to Heaven Realm? What if he met the previous Nika user, Nika the Destroyer? I keep forgetting how Heaven Realm's going to play into this. I'm very, very curious about that. Luffy dying and going to Heaven Realm would be crazy. Edward 40 Hen says his character evolves during part 1 till Itachi shows up again and makes him relive the family slaughter for 48 hours straight. That's why I said to reread it. I mean, I don't remember any point where he stopped being an asshole in part 1. That's all I'll say. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's a window where he stopped being an asshole. I don't remember. If anything, Naruto was the asshole. He was addicted to so many characters for no reason except trauma. I remember everyone bullying the fuck out of Naruto, but maybe I don't remember. I remember everyone, including the adults of the village, bullying the fuck out of Naruto. Ender says, if you think Sasuke is nothing but an asshole in part 1, you genuinely need to reread the series. It isn't even a matter of taste, it's just an objectively wrong take, Law. Okay, maybe. Maybe. I don't remember him ever being a nice dude. I'll say that. Tiptia says, I hate this character, I don't remember. I don't think this is fair, because what I remember is that he's an asshole. So I'm telling you what I remember. And you guys are saying that, no, there's depth behind him being an asshole or something. But I'm like, no, I have a vivid memory of this guy being an asshole throughout the series. That is my memory of him, you know? I'm not just picking a character like fucking Choji and being like, that guy's an asshole. I remember Sasuke as an asshole. That is the consistent impression that he left on me from the beginning of the story, his first interactions with the main character, his interactions with Sakura, his interactions with fucking everybody throughout the series. That's all. Sakura was worse than Sasuke? I mean, I didn't like Sakura either. I don't know why that's relevant to Sasuke being an asshole. That's just saying there's more assholes. Sleeping Danger says, I think over the years, if you convince yourself so much that Sasuke is worse in your head than he is in the actual series. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe, maybe not. I still maintain that there is not a single moment where he isn't a dick that I can recall in part 1, but maybe there's panels or bits of dialogue that I just forgot about. That's possible. And everything post, yeah, sure, Itachi made him relive that shit for a while. That you're just explaining why he got turned into an asshole. You're not saying he's not an asshole. Does that make sense? Again, this is true in real life, right? Which is experiencing trauma does not excuse who you become after it. Like, those two things are different, you know? If a guy rolls up to you on the street and beats the shit out of you, this is a random example, right? But just to illustrate the concept. If a guy rolls up to you on the street and beats the shit out of you, and then after that he's like, hey, listen, my fucking parents were killed when I was young. And then you'd be like, never mind, man, you're not a dick. It's like, no, he's still a dick. You just now know why he's a dick, you know? Edward says, the Sasuke take is a bad take, but it's clear he hasn't read or watched Naruto in a long ass time. Look, maybe I don't remember. Maybe I don't remember. Maybe I don't remember. I remember them trying to come save him multiple times and him basically fucking them up each time and saying some dickish shit to them. That's what I remember. That's what I remember. I remember him spitting in people's faces over and over again throughout the series. I remember him, doesn't he like nearly kill it? Who's that girl who fucking is all over him, who loves him? Karin? Doesn't he kill Karin or try to kill Karin? Doesn't he try to kill Kakashi? what am I missing here? Am I caught up with JoJo Lands? No. I'm gonna wait till JoJo Lands finishes before I read it. Doesn't he try to kill Karin or Sakura or something like that? What's the excuse for that? I'd be happy to hear the excuse of why he's actually not an asshole for doing those things. Sasuke tried to kill everyone. Yeah, so like why is he not a piece of shit for doing that? Slowpoke Picnic, thanks for the 8. The Usugoi author won the OFB Japan Championship and started writing Genekasuri underground boxing manga, and it's been awesome. Should check it out. Is that like Hajime no Ippo? That's in part 2 during the section of the story you admitted to skipping. No, because those things occur during the Summit arc, right? The 5 Kage Summit. I've read that section of the story. Everything from Pain onwards I've read, and everything in between I've gone back and like read or watched bits and chunks of. Right, so I'm seeing all the comments saying there's no excuse, so then what am I missing? How is he not a giant dick? Sasuke is generally bottom 1 characters during the 5 Kage Summit and Danzo fight. Yeah. So Taptio with the classic no actual counter argument. Just upset that I don't remember every beat of the story, but unable to challenge the parts that I do remember. Jordan Vance says he was crashing out and inevitably tried to crash out on his allies too. Oh, my bad. So he wasn't an asshole. He was just crashing out. That's what we call it nowadays. He was just crashing out. Andrew saying Morge Sasuke is literally Naruto's biggest supporter up until the Itachi reunion. No one stood up for Naruto more than he did. No one gave his life for Naruto more than he did. No one cared as much. Maybe that's true. I don't recall this. I recall him spitting in Naruto's face and talking down to him a lot, but maybe I don't remember this. I also feel like Naruto did have other bigger supporters. Like his fucking senseis and shit. But maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe I'm forgetting some stuff. I do remember the overarching actions of the character were him being a giant dick to Naruto and everybody else and trying to kill people who really cared about him and who've never done anything wrong to him. That's what I remember. So if that doesn't make him an asshole, I don't know what to say. Tries to kill Karin when Danzo uses her as a shield this time, Lord. But then Hesus Messi says he's misunderstood. So which is it, right? How is he misunderstood? He tried to kill Karin when Danzo uses her as a shield, but he's misunderstood. What am I misunderstanding about that situation? To you haven't even read Naruto? Okay, you're out of this conversation. You're banned from this conversation. This is absurd. What are you trying to defend? The fuck? Annie says the problem in Naruto is that Kishimoto took agency out of other characters to the point that only Naruto's personal opinion towards Sasuke mattered. Yeah, Naruto just... The problem is that Naruto is overtly attracted to Sasuke. Undeniable throughout the story, right? So it's not even like a fair perspective to view Sasuke through. Andrew says the point of him attempting to kill Karin is that he's seemingly too far gone in his quest for revenge as everyone gives up on him except Naruto. Exactly, dude. So he is an asshole who does not deserve to be redeemed, in my opinion. That's all. Because like, why does he deserve to be? Why does he deserve a pat? Like, he goes out of his way to try to kill. It's just Naruto's overt love for him that basically gives him a pass at the end of the day. I don't remember him even at the end of the story wasn't he trying to do fucked up shit, and Naruto basically had to stop him. Wasn't that what the final battle was about? Sleeping Danger says, no one would say Sasuke isn't an asshole, but you were exaggerating how bad he was. He tried to kill the girl that fucking was his biggest supporter throughout the series. The woman who's showing him basically unconditional love and support, he's treating as a fucking tool. You know who does that? Fucking One Piece villains. Like outright villains who we don't usually say that, you know what, they're really, really good inside. We should just give them a pass for all this. So he's given a million passes throughout the story for no fucking reason. I don't recall him doing enough to redeem himself for a lot of these things, especially because, can someone give me the context of the final fight? What was he trying to do in the final fight? It was something bad, right? The final battle is Sasuke shouldering all the burdens of the world. He also tried to kill Naruto at the beginning of Shippuden LMAO. Tio, now you're just playing dumb. The fact that you treat your opinions like they're about the whole story, while it doesn't seem you actually have the authority to have that opinion on Naruto. Now you are showing the memory of a dementia patient, because if you recall, what did I preface my entire Naruto discussion with? This is what's frustrating about streaming sometimes, because, like, everything's in the transcript. Like, you guys are able to hear everything I'm saying, but you selectively ignore points and beats just to try and make arguments, which are usually poorly constructed, because I'm trying to respond to everybody's points, and at the same time, there's no acknowledgement of me outright explaining, look, I don't remember everything about Naruto. Here's the points that I do remember, right? Give me counter arguments to those points. That's all. If I see a counter argument to the current situation, that's totally fine. But I say from the beginning that, hey, I don't remember everything about Naruto, so this is not a holistic opinion. It's not a comprehensive opinion. But here's the points I do remember, so you can counter argue those points with things that I don't remember, right? But so far, there hasn't been a counter argument to the current point. There hasn't been a counter argument to him trying to kill Naruto, kill Sakura, kill all these innocent people who've been nothing but nice to him and tried to help him. The only counter argument that I've seen so far, which I acknowledge I don't remember, is that supposedly Sasuke was not a dick to Naruto at the beginning of part 1. That is a claim that is being made. I can't 100% support or refute that, so I'll give you guys that. But I'm also laying out a bunch of other things that I do remember. If I'm wrong, you need to give me counter arguments as to why those are incorrect, you know? You can't just rely on one word you don't remember. Okay, then jog my memory. Tell me why the current situation is excusable. That's all, you know? He was trying to become the villain that united the world against him. Okay. He was going to re-enslave the tailed beasts. Okay, so slavery. So he wanted to kill all the Kage. Okay, so unreasonable. Ender's giving a lot of points for why he was good in part 1. So I can give that. I can then acknowledge that at the very beginning of the story, he was just a little rough around the edges outside, not the most friendly exterior, but good underneath. Give him that. What I have said, if I recall, my main argument was that every major decision that Sasuke made over the course of the story, from betraying everyone, joining Orochimaru, then trying to kill everyone when they tried to save him from Orochimaru, then his actions after learning the truth from Itachi, then his actions at the end of the story. I remember all of his major decisions in the story are asshole-ish, right? That's my memory. If someone can justify all of those actions, I'd be happy to hear it. But I don't I don't see counter arguments here. Eduardo Forehands, we're past Land of Waves at this point. If you want to argue that Sasuke wasn't a dick at the first, like, 10% of the story, that's an argument. But we're talking about the rest now. The DEU99, thank you. Typical Morge stream. Morge makes perfectly logical points, but people won't concede for some reason or give any good arguments. Maybe they're just trying to engage the stream. I don't know, because I do get worked up when there's not actual points being made. I will concede on things that you're telling me I'm incorrect on if you could give the points. So Land of Waves, done. Edward, 40 hands, and Ender Anami, I give it to you guys. What about Sasuke for the rest of the story? Because that guy is a dick, right? How's he not a dick? Morge, where does Hunter x Hunter rank for you personally? Uh, I feel like 2, 3. It's somewhere between 2 and 4 for me. Somewhere between 2 and 4. One Piece is 1. That's never really going to change. It's the only series that I would like want to dedicate like this much time to talking about. Hunter x Hunter, while I love, it's not a series that I would ever want to make a channel about, or I'm so deep into the story that I want to talk about it constantly. You know, One Piece is the only one that's like that for me. There's not quality rankings, it's just personal preference, right? So One Piece is always going to be my favorite. I used to feel like Fire Punch is my second favorite manga, but it's short, so it's hard to evaluate. So I would say before I felt like Chainsaw Man was my favorite manga, second favorite manga. It was either Chainsaw Man or Fire Punch for different reasons. It's harder for me to feel that way about Chainsaw Man after how part 2 ended. So either I like pretend in my head there was only part 1 or what. Like Chainsaw Man's hard for me to rate now. I still really love Chainsaw Man. Fire Punch feels like it's a complete manga. It feels like such a perfect, unique concept. I absolutely love it. It's one of the most mind-blowing stories I've ever read, period. But it's very short. I'm not as invested in Fire Punch. I don't feel love for the characters or the I don't feel love for the characters or the world or anything. It's more that one's more, I guess, from the intellectual perspective, like the themes, ideas that it brings to the table, you know? So it's hard for me to rate Fire Punch. I want to say maybe Hunter x Hunter is my second favorite. So like my order of 2, 3, and 4 is basically, it's something like, I guess depending on the day, it's like Hunter x Hunter, Chainsaw Man, Fire Punch. Depending on the day, what I'm feeling, it's shuffled. Anyway, that's basically it. I feel like a lot of the arguments that are being made to excuse Sasuke at this point also apply to fucking Griffith from Berserk. Like, Griffith also fucking put his life on the line to save Guts and shit like that. Like, yeah, they could do good shit early on and then turn out to be giant assholes later. That's all I'm saying, right? Like, I'm not out here being like, you know what, Griffith's a good guy because he helped Guts out against Zod. That's my only point, you know? I'm asking about the rest of the story because that's the overarching memory of Sasuke for me. Part 2 of Chainsaw Man was such a waste of time. Yeah. One Piece or Breaking Bad? So at this point with Breaking Bad, I'm almost done with Better Call Saul. We're gonna wrap stream soon. I'm almost done with Better Call Saul. I'm in season 6. I am now finally approaching a point where I'm like, the last several episodes of Better Call Saul have been so good that maybe I will end up liking the show better than Breaking Bad. It depends on how it sticks the landing. And I think I'm probably gonna rewatch Breaking Bad after the end of Better Call Saul because I'm so curious about my feelings towards it now. Because at some points I'm like, I really love Better Call Saul, but it's not better than Breaking Bad. It's not better than Breaking Bad. But now I don't know if it's like the rose-tinted glasses or what. YouTube keeps recommending me old clips of Breaking Bad, and every time I watch those, I'm like, oh man, this show is so good. But Better Call Saul is so good right now. So I don't know. I don't know if Breaking Bad is gonna remain my favorite series at the end of everything. Please, no spoilers for Better Call Saul. Sincerely, I've been able to remain, mostly spoiler-free. In fact, actually, there have been several times that I've seen like a YouTube little thumbnail or clip or something. I'm like, oh fuck, I think I got spoiled, and then it turns out to not be an important spoiler or something. So, yeah, I'm loving Better Call Saul right now. The only thing I'd say is like, Bleach characters are fun and usually have great interactions among each other, but the fights can be so meh. Oh, I view it as the other way around. I mean, I find a lot of Bleach characters fun, just not the main characters. Usually it's captains and stuff like that. But anyway, Dark Gamer says Breaking Bad didn't do well when it aired, right? It was kind of slow. It's when it hit online it became a phenomenon. I know Breaking Bad from the beginning, at least it was getting a lot of attention in terms of critics and awards and stuff, so at least it had that going. What about the BS scams? Did they stop? Okay, so I'll say this. So this might be a weird opinion, but I don't know if it's a shared one. So without getting too much into it, I don't want to spoil Better Call Saul for people, but I've found at this point in Better Call Saul, one of the things that's making me not enjoy it as much as Breaking Bad to some degree, but I kind of do as well. It's in a weird way. I really hate Jimmy and Kim now. I'm towards the very beginning of season 6, like imagine a couple episodes in, okay? That's where I'm at. I truly hate Jimmy and Kim. I think I started episode 3 or something, or maybe I finished it. I don't know. I'm just imagine I'm towards the beginning of season 6. I really hate Jimmy and Kim at this point in a way that is sincerely hard for me to root for them at all. I root against them at every moment at this point, and I want their plans to fail. But it seems like they're going to succeed. I really, really hate them. I despise Jimmy and Kim. And you might be saying, but Morge, Walt, so much worse than Jimmy and Kim. Fucking meth lord, etc. He actually killed people, stuff like that. I'm not trying to get into who's morally better or worse. Walt, morally probably way worse than Jimmy and Kim, okay? And again, please no spoilers or anything, because maybe my opinion will change by the end of Better Call Saul, right? I'm just where I'm at now. I didn't feel this way about them earlier in the story. But it's become that over the course of season 5 and 6. Walt, obviously, the stuff that he does is terrible, right? Like, if you were to actually make a resume of the bad things that they've done, Walt is much worse. Jimmy and Kim, I think I sincerely despise them. Sincerely despise them. Walt, in a weird way, I could still root for and want his criminal shit to succeed because the main terrible thing he was doing, which was creating meth, which is fucking over countless people's lives, we always had a bit of detachment from that. He was just a seller. The meth goes out into the world. Whatever happens, happens, right? So we don't see as much. With Walt, it's like the meth stuff fucking up people's lives. It's not personal. It's business. It's fucked, right? He's a bad person, but it's not personal. And with Walt, every time he killed somebody or went against somebody or something like that, it was for 2 reasons. One, either it was like a true villain that needed to die, be shot, or whatever, for survival or whatever. Or 2, like the Gale situation, obviously extremely evil to kill a man like Gale like that, but it was like an absolute necessity. It was just like survival. It was like either I die or Gale dies, right? Again, Walt is a worse person. He's done way worse things, but it's easier almost to get into the criminal mode with him and get behind some of his plans and schemes, okay? With Saul and Kim, initially their plans and schemes were like fucking up just like assholes or whatever, right? Saul and Kim are at a point where they're doing stuff that's needlessly cruel. It's stuff that's truly hard for me to want to watch. Like, it's the pointlessness of it. It's them seeming to enjoy fucking with people, especially Kim at this point, right? They just get high off of being dicks to people. They get high off of ruining people's lives, many of whom don't actually really deserve that, if that makes sense. So what they're doing is nowhere near as bad as what Walt does, but from what I remember with Walt, he was never needlessly cruel to a random person just to be needlessly cruel to them. I might have gaps in my memory here. You could say stuff like, well, Walt didn't save Jane or something, but I viewed Jane as a character who was a giant piece of shit. What Saul and Kim have been doing recently is just so... Like, Howard is a character who sincerely has tried to help Jimmy many steps of the way. He's always been reasonable, always fair, fallen on his own sword in different situations, tried to help the firm, paid out of pocket to try and help Chuck when Chuck didn't deserve it. He's not a character... Like, it's just bizarre how cruel that they're trying to be to him, and they're justifying it. I think that's the big thing. I don't know. Smile says Walt also poisoned a child. Yeah, but again, it was... it's 2 things in the sense that Walt doesn't want to do these things. It's not an excuse. I'm not saying Walt's a better person. He's a much worse person, right? Much worse person. But Walt wasn't going to kill that child. He dosed it in a way that the child was going to live. And 2, it was survival, right? This whole situation was basically he needs to do its preservation, right? It's not excusing his actions, But watching the show, I can step into Walt's shoes and be like, this is twisted how he's going about trying to save himself, but you're in survival mode with him. Saul and Kim are never in survival mode. They always have money to play with, and they can trick people out of money, right? Everything that they do, it's out of just them getting kicks out of it. And that's why it's harder for me to root for them. Like, every step of their plan that they're doing to Howard, it's not like me watching Walt concoct a plan to take down Gus, who's another criminal mastermind or whatever, right? That's a battle between criminal masterminds. This is like them preying on a person who, sure, he's not perfect or whatever, but it's just them getting kicks out of being cruel, and they're justifying it for themselves. I don't know. Jimmy's schemes are very personal and devastating for an individual. Yeah, and that's the interesting thing, which is that I can weigh both characters and be like, Walt is a much worse character in terms of the actual outcomes of the things that he does. But as a TV character, I've reached the point where I just, as a TV character, watching him on my screen, watching the way that he talks and lies and just gets a joy out of hurting people, I dislike Jimmy and now Kim more. And it's weird. It's just like a psychology thing. It is what it is, you know? Yeah, Walt's ego, we can get into that and everything like that. He does lionize himself in a way that's not actually accurate to reality. That's 100% true. And I dislike that about Walt. That's Walt's biggest flaw, right? Walt's biggest flaw is basically like, he doesn't actually need to be doing all of this evil stuff that he does. It's largely for his ego. But with Jimmy and Kim, it feels like a little even harder to support them because it's like everything that they're doing is out of cruelty. It's sincerely out of cruelty, right? Walt is trying to do stuff for himself, stroke his own ego, etc. Jimmy and Kim like seeing other people suffer. They actually enjoy seeing other people suffer. And for me, that's a step further down in terms of like how much I'm going to like this character. I'm never going to enjoy Jimmy and Kim just wanting to do nasty things to innocent people just for the sake of doing nasty things to innocent people. It just is what it is. That's my personal preference. Personal preference. Jimmy is the most someone needs to punch this motherfucker in the face in Breaking Bad. Yeah, it's like you can be a worse person and a worse character morally, but these people can just piss you off and get under your skin more. And I think that's where I'm at. So it's complicated though, because I used to actually really love Jimmy's schemes early on. I said that some of them are kind of silly in terms of like how much effort he's putting into getting almost nothing back. Obviously, that goes into him just getting joy out of tricking people and conning people, right? Jimmy's whole character writing, it's brilliant the way it kind of misleads and misguides our viewers in the sense that because the one person, like Howard pointed it out, Chuck was right about you, because the one person in the series who kept on calling out Jimmy for who he is, what was wrong with him, etc., happened to be a person who himself was not very likable, Chuck, we got to see things through Jimmy's perspective early on and actually root for him and rally for him when he's doing his con man stuff. And we can kind of step into his shoes and understand why he does it to some degree. But the further and further the story goes, especially post certain things happening with Chuck, it stops being about that. And then you just eventually see the version of Jimmy that Chuck always saw. Whether that's the true Jimmy or the fallen Jimmy, and he still has time to redeem himself, I'm curious. I'm going to wait till the end of Better Call Saul. But we have now reached a point in the story where I'm addicted to watching the show, but I hate, I'm against everything that the main characters are trying to do. Like when they're trying to concoct plans and stuff, I want them to fail. With Walt, when Walt, in the finale of Breaking Bad, Walt comes back, he's got a plan and a mission, and he's going to go on a tear, and he's like, I'm going to get one over Gretchen and whoever, that guy. I'm going to kill Lydia. I'm going to take out all the neo-Nazis and Todd. And he just goes on this spree where he takes out everybody one by one. I know I'm watching a bad guy, but I want him to succeed in all of these plans. Like, the show has still gotten me to root for this bad guy. Where I'm at with Jimmy right now, just right now, I don't know if it'll change by the end, I want Jimmy and Kim to fail. I am not in support of anything that they're doing. I want them to fail. And one step farther, where I'm at right now, I want Lalo to fuck up Gus, and I'm just so sad that I know that Gus is the one who. I like Lalo and Mike, or sorry, I like Lalo and I'm on Lalo and the Salamanca side at this point in time. I like them better than Gus and Mike, sincerely. I don't even like Mike at this point, and I liked Mike quite a bit in Breaking Bad. Mike, to me, at this point in the show, is the biggest. I don't know if hypocrite is the right way to say it, but it's just like I don't like Mike. I just don't like Mike at this point because he's a character that seems to try to stand for something or have certain like I mean, he himself acknowledges flaws, etc., blah, 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 blah. We make these choices. This is who we are. It is what it is, etc. But I'm like, okay, but you just saying all that stuff doesn't excuse you in my mind. I don't know. I was always team Chuck is right. I just believe Chuck, knowing Jimmy for longer, is the most informed about who he is and is immune to his charm, says Dobby Greg. Yeah, Chuck was right. The way things ended with Chuck just started Jimmy on an insane spiral he never got out of. Hey, no spoilers, no spoilers. I don't know if Jimmy redeems himself or gets back on track or what. Because I do believe that the Jimmy at the start of the story is fundamentally different than the Jimmy we have now. I do believe that he was able to change in some ways, but has just regressed so hard to the worst version of himself. Lalo's the most baddest character in my opinion. In terms of like the evil and stuff that he does, yeah, I haven't seen enough of the evil that he does. I know he's a bad guy, but I just find Lalo so. I guess the way that I put it is that Gus and Mike, I think, are morally no different than the Salamancas and Lalo, despite Gus claiming that morally he is. He's not, okay? I find Lalo to be the most fun, charismatic, and entertaining of the bunch. And I feel like with Lalo, like, there's still values there with Lalo that, like, no, Lalo's not better than them. He's not better, he's not morally better or anything like that, but I think at least there's not pretense in terms of like Gus and Mike somehow they justify this stuff to themselves. And honestly, if I'm stepping back, just looking at Nacho, who's been caught in the middle of everything, the Salamancas overall have been better to him than Gus and Mike have, at least where I'm at in the story. It's not like if you just step back and look at everything, right? These are, okay, quick Better Call Saul spoilers, I suppose, to some degree. Better Call Saul spoilers, I think it's going to be hard for me to hold back. I think so far, maybe I haven't gotten to the worst stuff Lalo's done, but I like Lalo. Lalo's ability to get kind of cartoonish at some point. Yeah, I think he's a little bit pushing the realism of Better Call Saul. I also might be mistaken. I feel like they made Mike even more capable in Better Call Saul than he is in Breaking Bad, to the point where it kind of breaks. I might be mistaken. I have to go back and see Breaking Bad, but there's a few things that happen that kind of elevate. Like in Breaking Bad, everything was a bit more grounded, you know what I mean? From what I recall in terms of characters' capabilities, Mike was always a very skilled soldier in Breaking Bad, but from what I recall, he wasn't quite as invincible as he seems to be in Better Call Saul. To be fair, in Better Call Saul, some random thugs did actually at one point knife him and stuff, so... But at least when it comes to, like, firefights and stuff, I don't know. It's starting to feel like Mike is a bit more John Wicky here. And then the twins also in Better Call Saul, the twins kind of just pull out some guns, walk into a compound with, like, dozens of people with guns and just take them all out without a scratch. I'm like... I didn't get the sense the twins could do that in Breaking Bad. And then, you know, Lalo's kind of just like Batman, basically. Breaking Bad, I feel like, and this might be hazy memory, I feel like it, even someone like Mike, who was like the tip top of what a soldier kind of, you know, like a fighter type figure was in Breaking Bad, I feel like Mike didn't have any scenes that felt like unrealistic in what he could do. Even the first scene that I can recall in Breaking Bad that kind of introduced Mike, I believe this was one of the first scenes, or the first scene. You know, he takes a bunch of people by surprise, takes them down, but he still gets his ear kind of shot off in the firefight. He's not this invincible John Wick figure. In Better Call Saul, outside of the thugs knifing him, he's just been practically untouchable throughout the series, so I don't know. Yeah, if I just think through, this is just me, please no spoilers, me just thinking through Nacho's actions throughout the story, right? With how the cartel treated him versus how Gus treated him, right? They're both bad, but you know, Hector, in the first place, he betrayed the Salamancas because he was like, well, Hector is trying to use my father's business as part of his scheme. Gus straight up puts a gun to his father's head and is like, well, I'm gonna fucking kill this dude. Gus and Mike kind of leave Nacho out to die, and they actually try to have him killed when he's no longer of use to them. Lalo was nurturing, he saw potential in Nacho, he respected him, and so he tried to move him up the ranks and promote him, you know? At the end of the day, the Salamancas, to me, are worse or less bad than Gus Fring and Mike's side at this point in time. I'm rooting for Lalo at this point, and I'm rooting for Nacho, even though now Nacho is... Nacho of all... I love Nacho as a character. He's probably my favorite character in Better Call Saul, either him or Lalo, but yeah. Mike is younger in Better Call Saul, says Dark Gamer. Yeah, but not like by much, you know? It's, what, a couple years difference or something like that? I don't know. Is who he is. I appreciate that. Yeah, please no spoilers about anything. Sincerely, again, I'm only a couple episodes in season 6, so if you're like, Morge, your opinions are wrong because this is about to happen, you can attack me for anything I've said about what's happened so far, but please don't try to get ahead and tell me that, oh, this is actually going to happen with Jimmy, or Lalo's actually a piece of shit because he does this or whatever. That's all. Yeah, Jimmy was a grown-ass man even before Chuck got him into law and has already spent most of his life tricking people. His older brother made him an asshole is silly to me. I mean, when Chuck told the story about Jimmy robbing their father from a young age, and even when we get the flashbacks to see how good of a person Jimmy's father is, it already was kind of like, okay, he's right in some ways. It's just that Chuck was so irritating and so rule bound and so like the law is holy that it just became so impossible to root for Chuck. And so it's kind of like the Spurs and Thunder situation where it's like, you know, the Spurs kind of turned out to be kind of shitty by the final as well in their own way, still room to grow or whatever, but they felt like the hero because they're up against the Thunder who just were so clearly assholish, right? Did you watch The Odyssey? No, I'm really looking forward to watching The Odyssey. Without spoilers, anybody who's seen it, is it really good? As good as people say? Dobby Greg says, fundamentally, I think Jimmy exploits people because he saw his dad as a moron and doesn't want to be him. Chuck became a strict, unforgiving guy because he saw people abuse his dad's kindness. That's an interesting angle on Chuck. I do agree that that's the angle for Jimmy, for sure. But at the end of the day, like Mike says, you make choices, right? So just because Jimmy saw that his dad was a moron doesn't mean that his dad now should become someone that Jimmy himself should exploit, right? If he sees his dad as a moron, I mean, he did try to protect his dad to his best of his abilities, but once he realized his dad's not going to take his protection, he's like, well, then you're a victim to me too. I don't know. Jimmy and Chuck were like Sasuke and Itachi for real. Okay, well, I don't want to hear anything. No spoilers about any new stuff that we find out about Itachi, or not Itachi, about Chuck or anything like that. Thunder were injured though. No, I mean I'm saying like in terms of, I'm not saying who should have won the series. I'm saying like who we kind of root for. You know, the Odyssey is literally like over 2,000 years old. I'm talking about the adaptation. You know, so I don't want to hear things about like, oh, I hated how Nolan did this scene because he portrayed this all wrong, or I love how he showcased this moment, etc., etc. The Odyssey was really good. I thought it actually had interesting commentary on modernity, especially this geopolitical situation going on right now. That's interesting. I don't know. Ender says his quest for... I see what you're saying, Ender. I get that there's depth to Sasuke's journey. That doesn't make me like him, if that makes sense. Like, you can understand, even if a story can make it apparent that there's more going on than just, like, you shouldn't just judge the character by their actions, but also to some degree the why. At a certain point, the actions are what are going to stick in at least my head. Maybe if I reread Naruto, I would really love Sasuke. Maybe. But at the same time, his actions throughout the story will always make me feel like he was an asshole. Maybe not always. Maybe if I reread, I'd be like, you know what? You're warranted in trying to kill Karen, etc. Yeah. indulging, drowning in hatred, to altruistic and self-sacrificial. You're right. It probably is a really, really good character arc if you read it with full fairness in mind, and if you accept that Sasuke became a very flawed, villainous figure at some point, yada yada. I still just wonder, does he ever really redeem himself? Because he would have tried and do shitty stuff to everybody at the end of the day as well if Naruto hadn't stopped him, right? Do I not like him as a person or character? I don't think I've ever said I have critiques about Sasuke being a poorly written character. I just have. I think from the beginning, this discussion was just like, I think Sasuke is an asshole. That's all. Megazord says he's meant to be hated for large parts of the story law. Yeah, so then isn't what I'm saying fine? Shippuden Sasuke was Jimmy level. Allawam says, if you like Oppenheimer, the Odyssey explores similar thematic elements. I did see some quotes from Nolan mentioning that. That's interesting. Oppenheimer, I actually low-key, I think everybody who watches Oppenheimer is going to come away from that being like, that was a really good, well-made movie, right? I think, or at least good, well-made movie, right? Maybe you don't love it, but Oppenheimer, I felt while watching through it the entire time, he's swinging for the Oscar. I don't like when a movie feels like it's made specifically for a goal that is related to the director's like prestige or something rather than just a really good movie. I liked Oppenheimer. It is unlikely I'm ever going to sit down again to watch Oppenheimer from start to finish. I think anything that the film was doing particularly creatively was actually towards the very beginning of the movie. I think that there was more creative scene direction even in the first opening bits of the movie when we're seeing, if I recall, like he's doing a little bit more abstract stuff with lights and stuff like that. I forget the exact sequence, but it's pretty cool towards the beginning of the movie. And it's stuff that kind of mirrors explosions and stuff that happen on later on towards the end. I guess it does come full circle to that. But beyond that, I don't think there was that great scene direction throughout it. I think it's just a very well-made, well-told story, well-acted, well-written, yada yada. It's not something that speaks to me in any sort of way that I'm like, oh, I need to watch this again from start to finish. It felt more like an exercise in, here, I am good at filmmaking. You can see I'm good at filmmaking from start to finish. This is an important subject matter. It's historical stuff. It's a big deal. I made it well. Give me the Oscar. And they're like, here you go, man. You're overdue. I think that there's a lot of Christopher Nolan movies that I think are better than Oppenheimer. As generic as it is to say, I think The Dark Knight is still, in my opinion, his best movie. The movie that I think he should have won the Oscar for, Dunkirk. I actually really, really like Dunkirk. People say, I think I saw some commentary that Dunkirk is like emotionally hollow. Dunkirk is low-key, like actually has one of the most emotionally moving sequences in a movie for me. The entire ending sequence of Dunkirk, despite being a very maybe because it's a very coldly filmed movie from start to finish, and it doesn't feel like that emotional, and you don't feel that attached to any particular character. To me, the ending sequence where it suddenly actually has a very, for me, heartwarming reveal that all the ships did come out to rescue the soldiers. That's actually still one of my favorite movie scenes of all time. I feel like he should have won for Dunkirk. That actually moves me quite a bit. And then the speech that's being, the speech that's playing throughout the end of it feels like it's not like a big triumphant, hell yeah, like all the good guys won type ending, but it felt like, even as bleak as the landscape it painted out, as bleak as war is, or everything that he painted, it felt heartwarming to see this sort of subtle but powerful display of just humanity throughout all of that. I really, really like the ending of Dunkirk quite a bit. Odyssey explores Oppenheimer's themes more. Yeah, I have no critiques of Oppenheimer. I just don't think I think it's a movie that will fall out of cultural relevance in 10, 15 years, whereas certain movies like The Dark Knight won't. And I'm sure, or Dark Knight, Interstellar won't. Dunkirk probably is not going to be super well remembered, but I'll remember it. The scene with the plane on fire is awesome. Yeah, for me, those scenes actually like bring tears to my eyes when I watch them. Dunkirk is cool. I think it's overhated. I didn't even realize Dunkirk is hated. I think Dunkirk, I just find the ending really powerful. I like Godzilla Minus One more than Oppenheimer vs. Topia. Yeah, Godzilla Minus One is It's maybe my favorite action movie ever, if you want to call it that, or maybe my favorite war movie, if you want to call it that. Or Lord of the Rings is probably my favorite action movie, if you want to call it an action movie or whatever. Godzilla Minus One is probably my favorite war movie, but Dunkirk would be number 2. Tenet, Inception, and Interstellar Infinite Rewatch. I don't like Tenet. I don't like Tenet. My whole family watched that. I remember on New Year's Eve. It was me, my family, my cousins, etc. And I think we all came away from it just like, that had creative filmmaking, but it just I just couldn't sink my teeth into any aspect of that movie to actually have investment in it for me personally. People say it's the most boring Nolan movie, so all who want. I think there is something to be said for that, because I frankly couldn't tell you most of what happened in the majority of Dunkirk. I remember the ending sequence, though. I remember the ships coming out of the mist or whatever it was, or over the horizon, and I was just like, oh my god. That, for me, is... I know people point to the Interstellar sequence of, him seeing... I mean, I think the Interstellar sequence of him seeing his daughter's messages every year was really good. But, Interstellar, him, yelling love is the answer and everything like that at the end, that's not going to move me as much as what he did at the end of Dunkirk. To me, the ending of Dunkirk is one of the most, for me, emotionally moving movie scenes that I've ever seen, So I might not like it the best as a movie overall, but for me, it's my second favorite of his movies in general, just because the ending is that strong to me. Dark Knight is going to be my favorite of his movies in general. It is what it is. You got to watch Tenet at least thrice. Maybe I would get a lot more out of Tenet if I watched it a couple more times, because it is a very confusing film that moves by, things are explained quick. Tenet was confusing first watch, but once I could understand the system from bird's eye view, it was a lot more impactful. I could believe that. Docking scene, says Dark Gamer. Docking scene was cool. The music for that's really good. I think Interstellar, I'm always going to be biased against Interstellar, because I came into it very hyped. I came into it very, very hyped and excited, because my favorite movie is 2001: A Space Odyssey, right? So I came into Interstellar very excited for this. I knew that it was heavily influenced by and inspired by 2001. So as the movie progressed and I began to feel more and more like, this isn't 2001. The more I began to feel like that, I think parts of the film started to hit less and less for me. And then by the time we got to him talking as a ghost to his daughter from across the universe about love or whatever, or doing the bookshelf shit, I was just like, Stanley Kubrick's rolling in his grave in my mind. I can respect a lot of aspects of Interstellar, but I think part of it was just the hopes that I was going into with seeing that movie, and then what it actually turned out to be. I was just like, man, I don't know. You did all of this just to yell at the audience by the end, love is the answer to everything. I don't know. Yeah, the depiction of black holes was awesome. Depiction of black holes was great. Have you watched Project Hail Mary? No, not yet. I really want to. I know it's we can stream it on demand now, so maybe we'll watch that soon. With Tenet, first time you're confused as fuck, second time you're theory crafting, third time you're like, holy shit. Okay, that's good to know. Maybe I'll watch it again at some point. I don't know. Sleeping Dangerous says, do you prefer a strong beginning or strong ending? 100% for me, strong ending. For me, an entire movie can be saved. I will go through so much trash to get if it pays off in the end with a strong end. Or not trash, but if everything can come together by the end, I will, for me, the ending is almost, I wouldn't say it's everything, but if it's strong in the end, then I will get through whatever to get to it, if that makes sense. Whereas if something's strong in the beginning but bad in the end, it's very likely I might not even try it. That's a personal preference thing. The bookshelf stuff was cool but lame at the same time. I've read that Interstellar was supposed to have a very different ending that's much more bleak or something like that, where he's trapped in the black hole forever or some shit. And I was like, that seems like a lot better. But I don't know. More just love of One Piece explained? I don't know. Did you watch Obsession? Of course, everyone watched Obsession. I love that. Did you watch the Doomsday trailer? I don't think... Maybe it's just because I've been really checked out of Marvel and I haven't watched any Marvel, but to me, the Doomsday trailers felt terrible. just didn't feel. It felt like they're just trying to recapture what they had before, but with a bunch of characters no one gives a shit about now. Andrew says a great ending can redeem an okay story law. That's how I feel. I guess that's a good way to put my view of Dunkirk, for example. Powerful Animal says, what is the best movie ending and why is it 8.5? 8.5's movie ending, I think when I first watched it, I was like, this feels a little overly cheesy for what this movie was, I guess. But at the same time, the ending sticks out in my head. Like, I just remember it clearly. Like, there's other scenes in 8.5 that I felt like I would remember more vividly. So, for example, the scene where he and the fuck, I don't remember the characters' names or whatever. It's almost right before the ending scene, but he finally meets with this woman who's kind of been like a muse figure or whatever. She's dressed in black, and they have this scene. I don't know how to describe it, but it feels like a scene that alludes to the idea of like death or him thinking about death and the finality of things, etc. And then the scene that's shortly after that is them all joining hands and running around, etc. Basically, this is life, yada yada, the people, etc. And that scene is such a sharp contrast to the scene that comes a little bit before it. And I always thought I would remember the scene that felt like the precipice of death. I felt like I would remember that more vividly. I remember there's like sort of, they're in front of an arch. There's kind of blackness behind it or whatever. I remember that scene very vividly, and I thought that was the main takeaway. That was the image I would have of the movie forever. And I kind of waved away. I felt like the finale scene was a bit too cheesy for me. But now whenever I think of 8.5, I think of that scene. And that is what I associate the movie with. So, I don't know. Maybe I did really like that scene at the end of the day. I love 8.5. It is... I haven't done like a mental re-ranking of my favorite movies in some time, but I know 8.5, I've always had like top few for me. Anyway. You know what other movie ending I liked quite a bit? Dolce, like, same director, Dolce Vita. La Dolce Vita. I love when he's tearing up the pillow feathers and tossing them in the air, and everybody's kind of doing like an exit of the film. It was pretty cool. All right, guys. We are going to call it here. It got pretty off topic after a while, but I was having fun. Thank you all for tuning in. Yeah, and we're back to One Piece this Friday.